In the beginning, there is silence. The cosmos is vast, serene, and seemingly eternal. Stars burn across incomprehensible distances, their light drifting for millennia before reaching our small corner of the universe. Planets trace their patient paths around the sun as they have for billions of years. Dust, gas, and ancient fragments drift through the void like forgotten whispers of creation. For most of human history, this silence has been our backdrop, a stillness so complete that even the smallest ripple is felt as a shock wave of meaning. It was into this silence that 3I Atlas appeared. At first, it was nothing more than a faint point of light, one speck among countless others. Telescopes in Hawaii and Chile noted it, catalogued it, and compared its motion to the background stars. The numbers confirmed what the eye could barely perceive. This was no ordinary comet or asteroid. Its path was not bound to the sun. It was an interstellar visitor, crossing the gulf between stars, threading its way through our solar system with an arc that obeyed no familiar cycle. We named it, as we always do, giving shape to mystery with language, 3I Atlas. The designation marked it as the third known interstellar object to pass through our system, after the enigmatic Oumuamua and the comet Borisov. Yet, unlike its predecessors, Atlas arrived carrying a presence that felt different. Its body glowed faintly, not in the way icy comets release vapor, nor in the way asteroids reflect the sun's fire. Instead, its light seemed alive, shifting subtly, as if responding to some hidden rhythm. To some, it was a trick of the instruments. To others, it was a sign that something extraordinary was upon us. And always, there was Mars. By chance or by design, the object's path curved inward toward the red planet. Not toward Earth, not toward Jupiter, but toward Mars. And that alignment alone was enough to stir imagination. For Mars has always been our mirror, Earth's twin, the god of war, the frontier of exploration, the graveyard of dreams. Now, it seemed, it would become the stage for a cosmic encounter. The silence grew heavier. Astronomers watched as Atlas drew nearer, its trajectory refined with each passing day. News of its arrival spread quickly across scientific circles, then into public awareness. Headlines speculated wildly. Was it a comet shedding fragments? A relic from a distant system? Or something more intentional? Social media lit with images of glowing rocks, alien ships, and the end of days. Yet beneath the noise, a quieter truth emerged. We did not know. And in that not knowing, awe returned. Consider how small we are. A world balanced in the habitable zone of a middle-aged star, orbiting for 4 billion years, unaware of what drifts through the darkness beyond. Interstellar space is not empty. It is filled with wanderers, with relics, with things that do not belong to any one sun. And once in a great while, they cross our path. Oumuamua had been the first messenger, streaking past like a shard of something half-remembered. Borisov had been the second, more familiar, resembling the comets we know. But Atlas arrived with a weight, as if carrying secrets too large to reveal all at once. It drifted through the void without sound, without intent that we could measure. Yet its very presence unsettled us. Humanity is accustomed to believing the cosmos indifferent, predictable, mechanical. Atlas challenged that comfort. For if the universe can send us visitors, what else might it send? And why Mars, of all worlds, as its point of approach? Silence gave way to speculation. In university lecture halls, astrophysicists debated orbital anomalies. In observatories, faint trails were traced against the stars, checked and rechecked for errors. In living rooms, ordinary people asked questions once reserved for myth. Is it a sign? Is it a warning? Or is it just another stone wandering forever between suns? And yet, when the chatter quieted, one feeling remained: unease. Because Atlas was more than just another point of light. Its glow seemed too steady, too deliberate, its path too uncertain. At times, it appeared to accelerate against predictions, as if nudged by forces unseen. And always, its course drew closer to Mars. The red planet became a kind of cosmic witness. As Atlas approached, scientists turned more instruments toward Mars than ever before. Satellites in orbit began to scan for subtle changes, shifts in the atmosphere, fluctuations in magnetism, echoes in the thin Martian winds. For if Atlas intended anything, Mars would feel it first. And so, humanity watched. We watched with the eyes of machines, telescopes that see in radio waves, satellites tuned to ultraviolet, orbiters mapping heat and light. We watched with the eyes of imagination, sketching shapes onto the unknown: serpent, shard, messenger, mirror. And we watched with something deeper still, an instinct that the universe had shifted in its stillness, and that we, small as we are, were now part of a larger unfolding story. For in every era, when the sky changes, humanity listens. We listen with fear, with wonder, with reverence. Ancient kings called their priests when a comet blazed across the night. Farmers planted differently when eclipses darkened their skies. Sailors set their journeys by stars they believed immortal. And now, in our age of satellites and science, we too pause. Because even with all our instruments, the silence of Atlas speaks louder than words. It is a silence that feels like presence, like something watching, waiting, perhaps choosing. And so the question forms itself softly, inevitably. What does it want with Mars? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. Perhaps the question itself is our mirror, reflecting our hunger to find meaning in the void. For the cosmos owes us no answers. Yet still, we ask. And in asking, we begin the story. But Mars is not just a planet. It is a canvas for our fears, our myths, our ambitions. To understand why Atlas's path unsettles us so deeply, we must first understand the stage upon which it now drifts, the red planet itself. Before Atlas came into view, Mars had always been a silent witness. For thousands of years, its ruddy glow has hovered in our night skies, steady and patient. To the ancients, this crimson light was unlike any other, neither as cold as Saturn, nor as brilliant as Venus. It burned faintly, a red coal in the darkness. And so, across cultures, across centuries, Mars was given the same role, the god of war. In Babylon, it was Nergal, the bringer of plague and conflict. In Greece, it became Ares, reckless and blood-stained. The Romans made it Mars, patron of soldiers and empires. In China, it was the fire star, an omen of unrest, a herald of dynasties collapsing. And wherever its light was seen, its meaning was clear. Mars was never neutral. Mars was warning. Now, thousands of years later, we return to that same red glow with machines instead of myths. Yet, in some strange way, the old associations still linger. When Atlas curved toward Mars, the echo of those myths returned like a whisper from the past. Of all worlds, why the war god? Mars is not just myth. It is also a mirror of Earth. When astronomers first charted its motion, they noticed how similar it seemed to our own world. A day on Mars lasts just over 24 hours. Its tilted axis gives it seasons: summer, winter, spring, autumn. Dust storms sweep across its deserts like the monsoons and winds of Earth. And the polar caps, white against the red, wax and wane like our own, promising water, perhaps life. It was easy to imagine Mars as our twin, easy to wonder whether it once harbored oceans, forests, even civilizations. Writers gave it canals and towers. Scientists gave it hope. Dreamers gave it destiny. And so Mars became not only the god of war, but also the frontier of imagination, the first planet we spoke of colonizing, the first world we imagined as a second home, a place where, if Earth were ever lost, a fragment of humanity might endure. Yet the more we learned, the more complex the picture grew. Space probes revealed a surface scarred and silent. The canals were illusions, the forests were dust. The oceans had dried billions of years ago, leaving only gullies, ancient riverbeds, and minerals locked in stone. Life, if it had ever existed, was long gone, reduced to whispers in the soil. Mars was not our twin after all. It was a ghost, a planet that had once danced close to life, then lost its balance and froze. Its atmosphere thinned, its magnetic shield collapsed, and its warmth bled away into space. And yet, this very fragility made it compelling. For in Mars, we see both what we are and what we might become. A reminder that planets are not eternal havens, but fragile stages where life clings precariously. Mars is Earth's double, but also Earth's warning. That is why it became the focus of exploration. The rovers, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, Perseverance, are not merely machines of science. They are our emissaries, rolling across alien sands, gazing at alien sunsets. Their wheels carve faint marks into the dust, marks that no wind erases quickly. In those tracks, we see ourselves, tiny, persistent, fragile, reaching outward. Orbiters, too, circle tirelessly, mapping craters, ice, and valleys. Satellites measure radiation, storms, and surface composition. From millions of miles away, Earth is connected to Mars by an invisible thread of data, a constant heartbeat across space. It is this stage, half myth, half mirror, that Atlas now enters. The ancient god of war, the twin of Earth, the frontier of our dreams, Mars has always been a participant in human stories. Now it becomes a participant in a cosmic one. For if Atlas were merely passing through the outer solar system, its meaning might be simpler. But to approach Mars, to drift so close to this world in particular, is to touch every layer of meaning at once. The old myths flare up. Is this an omen? A return of the war god's fire? The scientific models race forward. Is this coincidence, or could Mars's gravity have pulled Atlas onto this precise path? And imagination, always restless, fills the silence. Could Mars be chosen? Not as random destination, but as deliberate stage? If Atlas is more than stone, then why here? Why now? Mars waits in silence. Its skies, thin and pink, are streaked with high winds. Its surface bears scars of impacts, some so vast they stretch for hundreds of miles. Volcanoes rise higher than Earth's Everest, though long dead. Canyons cut deeper than our oceans. It is a world of giants, yet strangely quiet, and into that quiet, Atlas drifts closer. Perhaps nothing will happen. Perhaps Atlas will skim past Mars, leaving only a faint dusting of debris in its wake. But even that would not erase the unease. For the stage has been set. Mars, the ancient god of war, is once again under cosmic scrutiny. The timing itself feels uncanny. At the very moment humanity is preparing for crewed missions, as nations draw plans to send settlers, as entrepreneurs speak of terraforming and domes, this interstellar visitor appears. As if to remind us, Mars is not ours alone. It is part of a greater story, one written across the stars. And so Mars becomes the red witness, not just a planet of dust and rock, but a participant in a drama unfolding beyond human control. It watches silently, its thin winds carrying no sound, as Atlas draws near. What will it see? What role will it play? And what, if anything, will be revealed by this strange alignment between an alien visitor and the planet that has always stood as our reflection, our warning, our dream? The silence deepens, and the story grows. But the visitor is not alone. As astronomers study Atlas more closely, strange companions begin to appear, fragments, glowing, multiplying, until the silent visitor no longer drifts as one, but as many. A swarm has entered the stage. In the beginning, Atlas was little more than a faint smudge on a telescope's eye, a whisper of light, dim against the dark backdrop of the cosmos. Yet even in that first glimpse, Something about it was unusual. Its path was not smooth, its light was not steady, and as astronomers traced its trajectory across the sky, the mystery only deepened. Measured against the stars, Atlas is colossal. Estimates suggest it stretches nearly 4 kilometers across, larger than most comets, yet smaller than the grandest asteroids. At first glance, its bulk seemed familiar, a wandering rock like countless others. But when its motion was charted with precision, the enigma emerged. Atlas moves too fast. Its velocity does not fit the neat equations of a solar system body. It drifts at nearly 26 kilometers per second, a speed that whispers of an interstellar origin. That number alone was enough to raise eyebrows among scientists, for only twice before have we recorded interstellar visitors. 1I Oumuamua in 2017 and 2I Borisov in 2019. Both were strange, both fleeting. And now, here was a third. The designation was given quickly. 3I Atlas, the third interstellar object ever detected. But unlike its predecessors, this one does not rush past on a clean hyperbolic escape. Instead, it slows, curves, lingers. Its trajectory seems drawn toward Mars, as though something invisible were tugging on it. And then there is the light. Most comets blaze with the sun's warmth, shedding dust and gas, leaving trails of fire that arc behind them. But Atlas glows differently. Its aura is faintly green, like ionized gases, but thicker, heavier, almost metallic in hue. And unlike a normal comet, its glow does not simply flare as it nears the sun, then fade. Instead, it pulses, brightening, dimming, like the rhythm of a slow heartbeat. Astronomers debate what this means. Some suggest exotic ices, carbon monoxide perhaps, or ammonia, sublimating under the faintest sunlight. Others propose fluorescent minerals, glowing when struck by radiation, but the pattern, the persistence of the pulse, troubles them. It feels almost deliberate. The surface itself is no less strange. Radar hints at jagged ridges, deep fissures, and structures that seem, in some images, geometric. A trick of light, or the faint suggestion of order carved into chaos? Some describe the object as fragmented, others as scaffolded. It is both natural and unnatural at once, as if two stories were being told in one shape. And so the arguments begin. One camp insists Atlas is a comet. Its green glow, its outgassing jets, its diffuse coma, all fit the model if stretched to the limits. They remind us that nature often surprises, that each comet is unique, that we must not leap to conclusions too quickly. Another camp insists it is an asteroid, cloaked in dust, disturbed by collisions in some ancient interstellar cloud. Its fractured body explains the uneven pulses of light. Its strange trajectory is merely the work of gravity, nudged this way and that by hidden interactions. But others are not satisfied. They point to Oumuamua's odd acceleration, unexplained by gravity alone. They recall the speculation that perhaps it was a light sail, a fragment of technology. They connect the dots. Now, once more, we see the unexplained. Is Atlas truly a wanderer, or could it be something manufactured? A relic, drifting across the stars? If so, then its path toward Mars is not coincidence. It is intention. The scientific community resists such leaps. Yet even the most cautious voices cannot ignore the peculiarities. The glow that pulses like a signal, the trajectory that bends where mathematics falters, the structures that look, if one stares long enough, like walls, towers, scaffolds. And as theories multiply, so too does the unease. For behind every possibility lies a different story. If it is a comet, then it is a reminder that the universe is vast, filled with icy messengers from other suns. A natural wonder, no more threatening than a falling star. If it is an asteroid, then it is the remnant of a shattered system, a shard of some distant world, drifting for millions of years, carrying with it the silent memory of places we will never see. But if it is something else, something manufactured, then it changes everything. Because that would mean we are not the only storytellers in the universe. That would mean intention exists out there, far beyond our skies. That atlas is not merely physics, but choice. Not accident, but message. And yet, if it is a message, what does it say? Is it warning? Is it observation? Or is it perhaps nothing at all, merely the wreckage of a civilization long gone, drifting like cosmic flotsam into our neighborhood? Astronomers watch the glow, measure the pulse, model the orbit again and again. Some lean into physics, some lean into speculation. But none can look at Atlas without feeling that it stands at a threshold, half natural, half alien, a visitor that does not quite belong to either world. It is in this tension that the enigma lives. For the universe is vast, and human knowledge is small. To label Atlas as one thing is to close the door too quickly. To label it as nothing more than coincidence is to deny the wonder that pulses faintly in its light. And so the debates continue, filling journals, conferences, and quiet midnight discussions. But outside those debates, a deeper reflection begins to spread. What if the universe itself is not silent, but filled with intention? What if every comet, every fragment, every drifting shard carries meaning, even if we cannot yet read it? What if Atlas is not anomaly, but mirror? A reflection not of itself, but of us, our fears, our hopes, our endless hunger to find meaning in the unknown. When we look at Atlas, do we see a comet, an asteroid, or do we see ourselves, our yearning to know whether we are alone? The telescope lenses cannot answer. The data will not settle the question quickly. For now, Atlas drifts, glowing faintly, enigmatically, as the debates unfold. And in that glow lies the heart of the enigma. A question, unresolved, shimmering in the void. Is this mere physics, or something more? But the enigma only deepens, for Atlas is not alone. As astronomers turn their gaze closer, they begin to see something strange. Fragments breaking free, companions trailing behind, as though the visitor were multiplying. And with them comes a new uncertainty. Has something shattered, or is something awakening? For as long as humans have gazed upward, the heavens have been both a map and a mirror. Stars charted our journeys, the moon guided our calendars, the sun dictated our days. But comets were never trusted. They were not steady, not reliable. They appeared suddenly, out of nowhere, blazing tails across the sky like fiery swords. They were interruptions in the order of things, signs, omens, warnings. The Babylonians recorded them on clay tablets, their wedge-shaped cuneiform noting with precision each strange light that broke the pattern of stars. To them, comets foretold the fall of kings, the rise of empires, the coming of famine or war. The sky was the language of the gods, and a comet was a word of unrest. In ancient China, too, the heavens were read as prophecy. Astronomers kept meticulous records, mapping the sudden appearance of broom stars, as comets were called. Their appearance was tied to upheaval, dynastic change, even the death of emperors. In one record, a comet streaks across the sky just before the downfall of the Qin dynasty, as though the heavens themselves demanded the fall of an empire. In Greece, philosophers debated their nature. Aristotle dismissed comets as atmospheric vapors, disturbances of the air. Yet their fiery presence was never treated as neutral. They were, as Pliny the Elder would later write, terrifying stars, their sudden arrivals tied to plagues, disasters, and wars. And in Rome, perhaps the most famous omen of all, the great comet of 44 BCE, blazing over the funeral games of Julius Caesar. The people believed it was the soul of their slain leader, ascending into the heavens. The comet became a celestial justification for Caesar's deification, a sign that even in death he was destined to rule as a god. The heavens had spoken, and Rome listened. Centuries later, in medieval Europe, comets still carried their weight as portents. The Bayeux Tapestry immortalizes one, Halley's Comet of 1066, streaking above as William the Conqueror crossed into England. To the English, it was a warning of doom. To William, it was a blessing of fate. The same light in the sky, two interpretations, both heavy with meaning. And comets were not alone in this language of fear. Eclipses, too, struck terror. When the sun was blotted out, when day turned to night, ancient people trembled. They saw dragons devouring the sky, gods withdrawing their light in anger. In Mayan inscriptions, eclipses are depicted as dark omens of sacrifice and divine wrath. The heavens did not simply illuminate, they judged. Even into the early modern age, these beliefs lingered. In 1910, when Halley's Comet returned, newspapers stirred panic by announcing that Earth would pass through its tail. Some claimed the gases would poison the air. Panic spread, and gas masks sold out in cities across Europe and America. The modern age had not yet shaken off the shadows of ancient fear. We today may smile at such beliefs. We tell ourselves that we know better. We speak of ice, dust, and orbital mechanics. We measure rather than mythologize. And yet, when an object like 3I Atlas appears, streaking in from beyond the stars, slowing as though to gaze upon Mars, do we not feel the same unease? For all our science, the old reflexes stir. A visitor from the heavens does not feel neutral. It feels significant. It feels portentous. When the ancients saw fiery trails, they asked, "Who is angered? What has been foretold?" When we see Atlas glowing faintly green, pulsing in its strange rhythm, do we not ask a similar question? What does it mean? Why here? Why now? Perhaps this is why the myths matter still. They are not simply stories of the past, but echoes of a timeless human instinct to find meaning in the sky, to treat the heavens not as distant in different spheres, but as messages, warnings, invitations. And so Atlas is not alone in the modern sky. It carries with it the weight of thousands of years of omen and prophecy. It is framed not only by telescopes and data, but by memory and myth. The Babylonians would have called it a sign of kings falling. The Chinese, a broom sweeping dynasties away. The Romans, perhaps, the soul of a god descending upon Mars. What then will we call it? Science will measure its orbit, analyze its glow, debate its origins. But in living rooms and temples, in online forums and whispered prayers, another story takes shape. Some say Atlas is a warning of war. Others, a herald of change. Still others, a messenger from distant minds. The heavens, it seems, still speak, and we still listen. And perhaps this is the greatest truth of all. Whether comet or craft, whether natural or alien, Atlas forces us to look upward with the same trembling awe our ancestors once felt. It reconnects us to the ancient recognition that the universe is not merely backdrop. It is participant. It is voice. And when that voice shifts, when a strange glow pulses above Mars, it is hard not to wonder if the old portents live again. But portents are only the beginning. For as telescopes sharpen their gaze, they see something even stranger. Atlas does not simply glow, it pulses in rhythms too regular to ignore. The question arises, are we watching a comet breathe or listening to something trying to speak? The night sky, for most of us, is a canvas of silence. Stars burn steadily. Planets wander on their ancient paths. The moon waxes and wanes. From Earth, it all feels fixed, eternal, predictable. But when astronomers pointed their instruments toward 3I Atlas, that silence gave way to something stranger. Amid the usual static of cosmic noise, faint pulses began to emerge, soft, regular, rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing across the void. At first, they seemed a mistake, perhaps the whisper of interference, the hum of machinery. Detectors often pick up Earth's own technology, blending the human with the cosmic. But as the data was checked and rechecked across observatories scattered around the globe, from Chile to Hawaii to Spain and Australia, the pattern remained. The rhythm was real. It was faint, but it was persistent. Too subtle to command attention, yet too deliberate to be dismissed. Some compared it to the pulse of something biological, slow and steady, almost alive. Others thought of a beacon, a stuttering flare in the darkness, repeating across unfathomable distances. It was not music. It was not language. It was not anything we could immediately decode. But it was there, and here, speculation ignited. Could this be communication? A message wrapped in light and dust? Or was it only our imagination, weaving order from chaos? We are creatures of pattern, after all. We see faces in clouds, animals in stars, voices in static. Once, survival demanded such instincts. The faintest rustle might reveal a predator. A shadow in the grass might hide danger. But when we turn those instincts upon the universe itself, what do they reveal? Truth, or the reflection of our own longing? Still, the pulses could not be ignored. They called to us, demanding interpretation. Scientists sought natural explanations first. Rotation, perhaps. Many comets spin, releasing jets of gas that burst like geysers from their icy surfaces. As they rotate, the jets create repeating surges of light or dust, rhythms born of motion. Others pointed to chemistry. Atlas glows faintly green, a color often linked to carbon reacting with solar radiation. Could the pulses be fluctuations in this glow, a resonance between sunlight and strange molecules? Another idea suggested tidal stresses, a body fragmenting slowly from within, its cracks releasing energy in quiet, periodic waves. Each theory painted a picture, but none felt complete. The rhythm was too precise, too stubborn to be explained away so easily, and so, slowly, the darker possibility emerged. What if the pulses were not natural at all? What if they were engineered? It would not be the first time our species has asked such a question. When radio telescopes first tuned themselves to the cosmos, they picked up regular, repeating blips. For a brief, thrilling moment, scientists wondered if we had found life. Those signals, of course, turned out to be pulsars, neutron stars spinning like cosmic lighthouses. But that moment of wonder left its mark. Now, as Atlas drifts near Mars, a similar question stirs. Could these faint beats be the signature of a machine? Some imagine a probe, designed to broadcast with minimal power, repeating signals not for us, but for anyone who happens to listen. Others wonder if the pulses are not outward messages at all, but inward mechanisms, like the heartbeat of an autonomous structure, regulating itself, maintaining its stability, orchestrating the swarm of fragments that travel in its shadow. The evidence is thin, the leap is dramatic. Yet the possibility lingers because the unknown invites it. In the vast silence of the universe, even the faintest whisper feels like intention. And perhaps this is the deeper truth. The mystery lies not only in Atlas, but in us. When we gaze into the cosmos, we seek ourselves reflected there. To some, the pulses resemble biology, breath, blood, heartbeat. To others, they resemble machinery, beacons, regulators, signals. But in each case, we translate the cosmos into human terms. We hear echoes of our own existence. The philosopher once said that humankind is a face drawn in sand at the edge of the sea, soon to be washed away. Yet over and over, we carve that face again upon the stars, inscribing meaning into the night sky. Atlas becomes not only an object, but a mirror, reflecting our desires, our fears, our endless hunger for connection. Skeptics remain cautious. They remind us that patterns deceive. Radio noise mimics signal. Dust clouds create false rhythms. Machines hum with hidden cycles. To them, Atlas is not speaking. It is only breaking, glowing, fragmenting, its rhythms nothing more than chance. But even skeptics admit, this particular rhythm is uncanny. It is not the clean beat of a pulsar. It is not the random chaos of debris. It dwells in between, too ordered for pure accident, too irregular for perfect design. And so it unsettles us. Coincidence, perhaps. But coincidences have weight when they arrive from the dark. Some researchers note that the pulses align with storms on Mars, with auroras flickering across its skies. Are these connections real? Or are they projections, our minds linking dots that were never meant to touch? If resonance exists, then Atlas may be stirring Mars itself. If not, then we are left with coincidence, mysterious but meaningless. Still, the questions remain. If Atlas is alive, what does it seek? If it is a machine, who built it? And if it is merely ice and stone, why does it echo like a drum across the silence of space? Perhaps the answer lies not in the object, but in us. We listen for voices because we fear silence. We search for rhythms because rhythm suggests intention, and intention suggests presence. Presence in the cosmos is what we long for and what we fear most. Atlas gives us no words, no music, no clear message, only faint pulses, repeating like the ghost of a signal. But in those pulses lives the possibility that silence is not silent after all. And so, under the patient eye of Mars, Atlas drifts on, pulsing faintly, refusing to explain itself. We are left in the in-between, between noise and signal, between rock and machine, between accident and design. And perhaps that is the most haunting place of all. But the rhythm is not the only mystery. For when scientists try to classify Atlas, to label it as comet, asteroid, or relic, they find every definition breaks apart. What exactly is this object? And why does it seem to resist our categories as though it does not wish to be named? Mars, the red world. For centuries, it has been the silent neighbor in our night skies, glowing faintly in hues of rust and fire. To ancient eyes, it was a warrior god, an omen of conflict, its crimson light associated with blood and strife. To modern explorers, it is a frontier, a barren but promising world where human footsteps may one day fall. But now, under the looming shadow of Three-Eye Atlas, Mars has become something else entirely. It has become a stage. At first, Atlas was expected to pass at a safe and predictable distance. Its trajectory placed it well beyond any close interaction, a wanderer that would brush the Martian orbit and continue onward into the black sea of space. But as weeks passed, the predictions faltered. Subtle deviations crept into the models. The object was no longer following the expected path. Instead, it edged closer. Not a collision course, not yet, but close enough to raise alarms. Observatories tuned their instruments, focusing on the Martian environment. What they saw was unsettling. Magnetic readings around Mars began to fluctuate. The planet S' already thin magnetosphere, an echo of a field long dead, seemed to ripple like fabric caught in a storm. Instruments detected strange oscillations, invisible currents running through space. It was as if Mars were caught in an unseen tide, pulled and stretched by something beyond ordinary physics. And then came the dust. Mars is no stranger to storms. Its surface is coated in fine, iron-rich particles that the faintest winds can lift into the sky. But the storms now grew fiercer, darker, more sustained. Dust devils spiraled across the deserts. Entire regions disappeared under veils of ochre haze. Satellites orbiting Mars captured images of the atmosphere thickening, its normally thin veil glowing strangely in the sunlight. In some frames, the planet's horizon shimmered with faint, luminous bands, almost aurora-like, as if the red world were wrapped in new energy. Coincidence or consequence? That question echoed through every control room, every late-night meeting of scientists who stared at the numbers, trying to hold on to reason. Could a passing object, even one as enigmatic as Atlas, truly exert such influence? Gravity alone did not explain it. The distances, while closer than expected, were still vast by planetary standards. And yet, the correlation was undeniable. Each approach of Atlas coincided with intensifying storms, with shimmering glows, with disturbances in Mars's delicate balance. Some theories ventured into bold territory. Perhaps Atlas carried a magnetic field of its own, invisible yet strong enough to disturb Mars. Perhaps it was emitting charged particles, streams of energy interacting with the planet's atmosphere, sparking faint auroras and stirring the winds. A few dared to whisper a stranger possibility, that the pulses detected earlier were not only signals, but forces, that Atlas was shaping the environment around it, whether deliberately or not. Mars, under this gaze, seemed to awaken. Its barren silence became turbulent, alive with storms and lights, as though reacting to the visitor above. And here, mythology found its way back into the conversation. In Roman lore, Mars was not only the god of war, but also a figure tied to agriculture, to fertility, to the cycles of life and death. Now, as the planet's skies brightened with strange illumination, some wondered, was this chaos a kind of renewal, or was it destruction? For the rovers still crawling on the Martian surface, the changes were more than philosophical. Dust choked the skies, darkening the sun and reducing solar power. Curiosity's panels were coated in grit, perseverance strained against dwindling energy. Dust clogged filters, seeped into joints. Signals grew weaker as the storms raged. It was as though Mars itself were withdrawing, hiding from the gaze of Atlas. From orbit, satellites recorded patterns in the storms. Not random, but rhythmic, faintly echoing the same pulse astronomers had detected from Atlas. Dust lifted and swirled in intervals, almost timed, as though the red planet itself were breathing in tandem with the object above it. Skeptics dismissed this as chance, a trick of human perception. But for others, it was the most unsettling clue of all. Was Mars resonating with Atlas? Was the planet, in some strange way, being tuned? Philosophers and poets seized upon the imagery. They spoke of a cosmic gaze, of a red world under judgment, of a visitor that forced Mars to reveal a hidden face. For ages, Mars had been a silent witness, staring across the gulf toward Earth. Now, under Atlas's presence, it seemed no longer passive. It seemed engaged, caught in a dialogue we could barely comprehend. And humanity, watching from afar, could only wonder. Were we observing natural forces, magnetism, gravity, chemistry, or were we witnessing something more intentional, something guided? Was Atlas merely disturbing Mars by its passage, or was it studying it, testing it, communicating with it in a language of storms and light? One cannot help but ask, why Mars? Of all the planets, why here? Is it only coincidence that humanity's next great step, our chosen frontier, is the very place Atlas has approached? Or is there a deeper symmetry at work, a convergence between our ambition and something far older, far stranger, moving silently through the void? The red planet glows now with a restless energy. Its skies shimmer with unearthly colors. Its deserts writhe under storms that last for weeks. In laboratories across Earth, data streams in, overwhelming in its strangeness. Charts flicker with anomalies. Instruments push the edge of comprehension. And behind every equation, every cautious hypothesis, lies a more ancient question. Is Mars simply reacting, or is it being watched? The gaze of Atlas lingers, cold, distant, unexplained. And as long as it hovers near Mars, humanity is left to wonder whether we are observing a simple interaction of matter and force, or standing at the threshold of something that blurs the boundary between nature and intention. Mars has become more than a backdrop. It has become a participant, caught in a relationship we do not yet understand. And as Atlas drifts closer, as storms rage and skies shimmer, the question grows heavier. What happens next? The silence of space gives no answer. Only the deep, patient stare of the object above, watching the red planet as though waiting for a response. But perhaps Mars is not the only one under scrutiny. Perhaps the gaze of Atlas extends further, reaching across the gulf of space, turning slowly toward us. Mars has long carried a name heavy with meaning. To the ancients, it was the god of war, a celestial symbol of conflict, blood, and struggle. Its red glow was not merely light, it was a warning, a presence in the night sky that stirred both fear and fascination. For millennia, humanity projected its anxieties, its stories of battle and chaos onto this distant world. And now, under the silent approach of Three-Eye Atlas, that myth seems to awaken once more. The planet's surface, already stirred by dust storms and shimmering atmospheric veils, takes on a new resonance. The swirling clouds, the flickering auroras, the strange pulses from above, these are not random phenomena. In some sense, Mars itself seems alive, as though responding to a visitor whose intentions remain unknowable. The quiet desolation of its canyons and plains is pierced by a sense of vigilance. We watch and realize that what we once saw as a cold, inert rock has become a canvas on which the cosmos writes its messages, dark and subtle. Astronomers struggle to reconcile the data. The patterns recorded from orbit are unusual, rhythmic in ways that defy simple explanation. Each storm, each pulse of magnetic fluctuation seems to echo a broader choreography, a cosmic beat that aligns too closely with the presence of Atlas to be dismissed. Is this natural resonance the result of physics we barely understand? Or something more? Something deliberate? A silent influence exerted by an interstellar traveler we cannot interpret? As humans, we are instinctively drawn to narrative. We seek meaning in coincidence, alignment in chaos. And here, in the glowing, restless skies of Mars, myth and observation converge. The god of war, once merely a figure of imagination, stands embodied in dust, storm, and light. The ancient stories whisper in modern instruments, reminding us that our ancestors too looked upward with awe, fear, and wonder. Now we are doing the same, armed not with myth alone, but with data, telescopes, and equations that struggle to explain what we see. The stakes of this awakening are both physical and philosophical. Mars' magnetic flickers, its atmospheric distortions, the rise of dust clouds hundreds of kilometers high, they are warnings of power, of forces beyond our immediate control. But they also challenge perception. What is the boundary between science and story, between cause and narrative? When a storm dances in rhythm with a passing cosmic body, we are forced to confront uncomfortable questions. Is the universe indifferent? Or does it operate with intention? Are these patterns merely our interpretation, or is there a truth hidden in the movement of matter itself? Across the surface of Mars, the dust twists in spirals that resemble ancient symbols, patterns that seem almost familiar. One cannot help but remember the war chariots of Mesopotamia, the fire serpents of Chinese legend, the crimson steeds of Roman imagination. They are metaphors, of course, but their resonance in the present moment is uncanny. The red planet, under the gaze of Atlas, seems to mirror the stories that have haunted humanity for millennia. Conflict, vigilance, the anticipation of unseen forces, these are not only human experiences, but cosmic echoes. For the scientists monitoring Mars, the phenomenon is both exhilarating and unsettling. Instruments report variations in magnetism stronger than expected. Radiation levels fluctuate, subtle but measurable. Dust storms intensify unpredictably. Satellites capture infrared readings that suggest transient heating in localized regions. And yet, there is no explanation that satisfies all observation. Physics accounts for some anomalies, but not all. The planet appears to be responding to something, or someone, above it. The mythology of Mars no longer feels like metaphor. It feels like a lens through which we glimpse reality. In control rooms on Earth, debate rages between those who seek purely natural explanations and those who dare to speculate. Some posit that Atlas may carry a magnetic or gravitational influence capable of perturbing Mars' environment. Others consider the possibility of unknown energy emissions or even subtle directed forces beyond current physics. In each case, the numbers alone cannot convey the full weight of the experience. The awe is not only scientific, but deeply human. The sense that history, myth, and observation have converged in a way we cannot fully parse. Poets, philosophers, and writers find themselves drawn into the same orbit as scientists. The red planet, now active in ways we did not anticipate, becomes a mirror reflecting humanity's own anxieties and aspirations. The war god awakens not only in the sky, but in the consciousness of those who watch it. It challenges the notion of separation between observer and observed, reminding us that even in the cold expanse of space, narrative, meaning, and myth endure. Atlas continues to drift, yet its presence is palpable. The planet's surface twists beneath its gaze, storms swirl with deliberate rhythm, auroras shimmer in unanticipated hues. Each observation adds layers to our understanding, but also deepens the mystery. The war god of legend and the red planet of science converge. The result is a tension both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder that the cosmos is not a backdrop, but an active participant in the story of life, observation, and consciousness. As we reflect on Mars under Atlas's influence, one cannot ignore the philosophical implications. Are we witnessing history repeating itself, the universe echoing patterns that our ancestors described in myth? Or is this an entirely new chapter, one written not in stories of gods and chariots, but in the subtle language of magnetic fields, dust storms, and orbital mechanics? In either case, the awe is undeniable. Humanity's fascination with Mars has always been intertwined with imagination, but now that imagination is tested against reality. The red horizon, shimmering under alien influence, reminds us of our own fragility. We are spectators of a world that responds to forces we barely comprehend, a planet caught in the silent attention of a stranger from the stars. And yet, the experience is not solely one of fear. There is wonder here, too. The alignment of myth and observation, of ancient symbolism and modern science, offers a rare glimpse into the universe's capacity to inspire, challenge, and humble. Mars, the god of war, is awake. Its storms and glows are not only meteorological phenomena, they are symbols, resonances, and perhaps warnings. Atlas drifts on its trajectory, silent and inscrutable, while the red planet under its gaze becomes more than a world of rock and dust. It becomes a mirror of human imagination, a canvas on which the universe sketches patterns that we recognize, even if their meaning eludes us. And as night falls across Earth, telescopes trained on Mars capture the quiet drama unfolding millions of kilometers away. We watch, we measure, we speculate. And all the while, we are reminded of our place beneath the stars, the smallness of our understanding, and the grandeur of the cosmos that continues to surprise us. In this awakening, there is no conclusion, only the sense that something vast and patient has begun to stir. Mars, the silent god of war, now resonates with a new rhythm, a quiet dialogue with a visitor whose purpose remains veiled. And in the quiet contemplation of this encounter, humanity is left to ask, what does it mean to witness a god awaken? The answer, if it exists, lies in patience, observation, and a willingness to embrace both awe and uncertainty. For now, Mars waits. Atlas watches, and we, small, fragile, and human, bear witness to the stirring of the war god in the cold expanse of space. The void is not empty, not entirely. In the blackness between Mars and the distant stars, subtle vibrations ripple through space, so faint that only the most sensitive instruments can detect them. As 3I Atlas drifts onward, radio telescopes around the globe train their antennas, waiting for any whisper, any fragment of a message, or even a hint of disturbance. And yet, what they receive is not straightforward communication. It is silence, a silence that speaks. Silence can be deceptive. In it, meaning hides. For weeks, observatories in Europe, North America, and Asia report faint fluctuations, brief pulses of radio energy that fade as quickly as they appear. Some peaks align with the object's rotational period, others seem entirely random, as though the universe is teasing us with a pattern we are not yet equipped to read. Each rise and fall of signal intensity is measured, recorded, analyzed. Scientists huddle over screens filled with waveforms, spectrograms, and logarithmic plots, trying to discern intention from noise. Philosophers note the psychological weight of such monitoring. The human mind craves causality. It recoils from randomness. When faced with a presence that seems both intelligent and indifferent, when the cosmos offers only ambiguous signs, our imagination begins to fill the gaps. Could this quietude be deliberate? Could Atlas, this interstellar visitor, be aware that it is being watched? Perhaps we are participants in a dialogue conducted in frequencies too subtle for our comprehension. The poets are drawn here as well. They see in the fading peaks a rhythm, a pulse, an echo of an alien heartbeat. They speak of the music of spheres, of whispers carried across light years, of a voice not meant for ears, but for consciousness itself. In the labs and observatories, there is tension between this romantic vision and the sober reality. Every scientist knows the risk of anthropomorphizing data, of reading intention into the impersonal laws of physics. Yet still, even among the most rigorous minds, wonder persists. Atlas does not answer. It does not acknowledge our presence. The silence is absolute at times, and then a pulse appears, a blip, a flicker of energy, a spike that vanishes before the next scan. Engineers check instruments, recalibrate receivers, and confirm the phenomena are real. Each detection is analyzed, every anomaly cataloged. The object does not conform to any known radio signature. It is neither a natural comet emitting charged particles in a predictable manner, nor a satellite with human engineering. It is something else, something that eludes classification, yet leaves traces of its presence in the fabric of space. In a quiet corner of the observatory, an astronomer murmurs, "It is as if it knows we are listening." The room goes still. Others nod, not in belief of intentionality, but in recognition of the weight of the unknown. To listen is to participate. To record is to bear witness. And yet, the deeper they probe, the more the silence seems to expand, filling the spaces between data points with an almost tangible tension. There are moments when the silence becomes deafening. For days, no signals register above the background noise. Instruments hum with their usual electronic drone, yet Atlas offers nothing. Then, unexpectedly, the energy spikes again, brief, rhythmic, almost musical. A pulse lasting mere seconds resonates through the spectrographs, leaving scientists scrambling to interpret it. Was it a natural emission? A reflection of solar wind interacting with the object? Or something else entirely? The questions hang unanswered, like stars suspended in the void, eternal and cold. Historians of science weigh in, drawing parallels to previous mysterious signals. In 1977, a radio telescope detected the WOW signal, a brief anomaly that has never been explained. Perhaps Atlas is leaving us another hint, another fleeting moment that will fuel speculation for generations. The pattern is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it suggests motion, rhythm, something that is neither fully chaotic nor fully predictable. The universe seems to speak in riddles, and we are only beginning to understand the language. Meanwhile, the public becomes captivated. Amateur astronomers point their dish antennas toward Mars and Atlas, tracking minor fluctuations with homemade receivers. Forums buzz with speculation. Some see patterns in the silence, sequences hidden in noise. Others caution against jumping to conclusions, emphasizing the need for rigorous, repeatable science. The interplay between wonder and caution, between imagination and methodology, mirrors the very tension at the heart of this narrative. Philosophical questions emerge as well. What does it mean to interpret silence? To observe without understanding? For humans, silence is often read as intent, a signal of consciousness. In the cosmos, silence may simply be the default state of all things. Or perhaps it is a form of communication too subtle for us to perceive directly, a language that requires not only technology, but a shift in perception, a new way of listening. Atlas challenges not only our science, but our ability to remain patient and open in the face of the unknown. Some theorists propose that the pulses correspond to rotational irregularities of the object, magnetic field interactions, or the release of volatile materials. Each hypothesis is plausible, yet none fully explains the precision or unpredictability of the signals. The object seems to defy classification at every level, not just in its orbit, size, or trajectory, but in its capacity to hold our attention in suspense. To some, this is frustrating. To others, it is sublime. To watch Atlas is to confront both the limits of human knowledge and the boundless creativity of the universe. As nights pass, the patterns continue, subtly shifting, never settling. Observatories in the southern hemisphere detect different anomalies than those in the north, suggesting the object's emission is directional or perhaps influenced by local interactions with the interplanetary medium. Researchers compare data from multiple observatories, merging spectrograms, aligning pulses, searching for correlations. Yet every answer seems to raise new questions, as if the cosmos delights in keeping its secrets just out of reach. Even philosophers join the discussion. They ponder the meaning of observation itself. Does the universe exist differently when we watch it? Are the signals, or the absence thereof, altered by our presence, by our consciousness? Could Atlas be a mirror reflecting back not only the physical laws of the cosmos, but the human need to find significance in patterns, even in silence? These questions have no easy answers. They have only reflection, patience, and awe. And then there are moments of beauty. The quiet whine of a deep space receiver, the flicker of a signal against the backdrop of cosmic microwave noise, the invisible dance of an interstellar object millions of kilometers away. In these moments, listening becomes a meditation. Scientists close their eyes, allowing the rhythm of the pulses, or the absence of them, to seep into thought. Poets imagine it as a song, faint and ethereal, composed in frequencies that brush the edge of comprehension. We are reminded that even silence carries weight, and even the void can inspire reverence. Through it all, Atlas drifts on, indifferent to the attention it commands. Yet its presence is unmistakable. Every pulse, every pause, every flicker of energy is a reminder that we are not alone in witnessing this cosmic dance. The universe is alive with motion and meaning, though its purpose remains obscure. For humanity, the act of listening becomes an act of humility, a confrontation with the vastness that surrounds us and the limits of our understanding. And as the night deepens, the telescopes continue their vigil. Every observer, every scientist, every poet and philosopher becomes part of this moment, a shared act of attention across continents, across disciplines, across the fragile span of human existence. The signals may never resolve into clear meaning. They may fade, disappear, and leave nothing but questions in their wake. But the process of listening, the patience, the contemplation, the wonder, that is the story. That is what Atlas has offered, intentionally or not. In the silence, there is communication of a different kind. Not of words or images, but of presence. The cosmos reminds us of its immensity, its complexity, and its patience. And in that reminder, we find both humility and inspiration. Atlas has become more than a physical object. It has become a teacher, a mirror, and a riddle. As the signals fluctuate, fading into the background hum of space once more, humanity waits. Eyes fixed, instruments calibrated, minds alert, hearts full of curiosity. And we realize that sometimes the most profound messages are not sent in sound or light, but in the quiet insistence of existence itself. Yet as we strain to understand, another question emerges. In the silence, are we listening to Atlas, or is Atlas listening to us? Mars, the red planet, is rarely still. Its surface, etched with ancient riverbeds, volcanic plains, and jagged canyons, has long been shaped by wind, dust, and time. But now, observers across the solar system begin to notice something unusual. The thin Martian atmosphere, usually calm in its cyclical shifts, begins to writhe with unrest. Dust storms, nothing new in themselves, suddenly swell to extraordinary proportions. Plumes rise far higher than any recorded in decades of satellite monitoring, sometimes lifting kilometers into the sky, spreading across regions in ghostly veils that shimmer faintly against the cold light of the distant sun. The planet's usual rust-red hue darkens beneath the swirling clouds, a muted palette of amber, orange, and shadowed gray. Orbital cameras capture the phenomenon with a surreal clarity. Swirls of dust form patterns almost like living shapes, whirls and arcs that seem to stretch, contract, and dance. And the storms move unpredictably, faster than expected, sometimes splitting into smaller vortices and then coalescing again as though driven by unseen hands. Scientists initially attribute these anomalies to natural cycles, local heating, or seasonal turbulence. But as measurements accumulate, even the most skeptical observers must admit that something is unusual. There is an intensity, a scale, that defies prior experience. Instruments aboard Mars orbiters detect subtle magnetic anomalies coinciding with the most violent storm activity. Magnetic fields, long dormant in the planet's crust, fluctuate unexpectedly. Dust devils twist across the surface, leaving fleeting, strange imprints in the imagery. Scientists ask themselves quietly, almost in fear, is this mere coincidence, the result of natural Martian dynamics? Or is 3I Atlas, the silent, drifting enigma observed just beyond Mars's orbit, playing a role we cannot yet understand? Some of the earliest theories attempt rational, grounded explanations. Perhaps the interstellar object is shedding material, its outgassing interacting with solar wind to create subtle gravitational or electromagnetic perturbations. Perhaps the approach of a massive dense body through Mars' vicinity is enough to destabilize atmospheric currents. Even tiny shifts in mass or gravitational pull, amplified over hundreds of thousands of kilometers, could have a measurable effect on dust and wind patterns. Each calculation is carefully modeled, each scenario tested in supercomputers, yet none perfectly accounts for the scale or timing of the storms. Meanwhile, images from rovers on the surface convey a different, more immediate reality. Dust settles over solar panels, reducing power efficiency. Tiny sandstorms whip across instrument housings. The sky glows with an eerie twilight orange, punctuated by flickers of sunlight breaking through the dense haze. Engineers and scientists on Earth watch in near real time, monitoring every spike in temperature, pressure, and wind speed. There is urgency, but also awe. Mars is revealing itself not as a static rock in space, but as a living, reactive world. And it does so under the quiet gaze of Atlas. Speculation inevitably follows. Could the object be influencing the atmosphere directly, through gravitational tidal forces or magnetic interaction? Could its passage trigger storms as a pebble might ripple water, only magnified to planetary scale? Some researchers propose even more speculative ideas: the object as a catalyst, a conductor of energy, or a probe whose very presence resonates with the planet's latent electromagnetic potential. All these ideas are presented not as conclusions, but as invitations to imagine the delicate interplay between interstellar objects and planetary environments. In lecture halls, online forums, and observatory control rooms, discussions echo a common sentiment. We are witnessing Mars behave in ways no one predicted, and Atlas is undeniably nearby. But no one can say definitively whether the object is a cause, a coincidence, or merely a silent observer. The storms intensify, at times covering entire hemispheres, and yet Atlas drifts calmly in the void, its trajectory unaltered, its presence inscrutable. The tension between observable data and unknown influence creates a sense of narrative almost mythic in scale. Historically, humanity has always interpreted unusual celestial events in poetic or ominous terms. On Earth, great storms, comets, and eclipses have been read as harbingers or warnings. Now we apply the same lens to Mars, half a planet away, yet seen through the clarity of orbiters and telescopes. The dust and wind take on symbolic weight. Are they messages, accidental effects, or natural phenomena misread through the lens of fear and fascination? The answer remains elusive, and the ambiguity itself becomes part of the story. Observers begin to track the storms, not just in isolation, but in correlation with Atlas' orbit. Each day, Mars rotates beneath the object, and patterns in dust movement seem, at first glance, almost synchronized with the interstellar traveler's path. A subtle rhythm emerges, a cadence that is tempting to attribute to intent or design. Yet caution reigns among scientists. Correlation is not causation. The storms could just as easily be a confluence of seasonal heat, solar input, and atmospheric instability. Still, the idea lingers. What if a wandering visitor from the stars has awakened something long dormant within Mars? Meteorologists on Earth who study Martian weather express both excitement and unease. For decades, they have cataloged ordinary seasonal storms, predicting their arrival with increasing precision. Now, with these megastorms, their models falter. Forecasts fail to anticipate the scale, intensity, or speed of storm evolution. Mars is rewriting its own rules, at least temporarily, and scientists are forced to acknowledge the limitations of their understanding. The familiar becomes strange, and the strange becomes enthralling. At the same time, the psychological impact cannot be ignored. Humanity's fascination with Mars is centuries old, from the fiery god of war in myth, to telescopic sketches, to robotic landers exploring its surface. Now our companion in the solar system is restless, volatile, and unpredictable. The dust storms seem to echo the drama of Atlas's approach, lending an almost narrative quality to planetary dynamics. As storms twist and writhe across craters and valleys, the red planet itself seems to be participating in a cosmic dialogue, whether intentionally or not. Speculative voices in the scientific community entertain bolder possibilities. Could the interaction be a form of indirect communication? Could Atlas, whether natural or artificial, somehow induce resonance in planetary atmospheres to signal presence, test response, or mark territory? These ideas verge on science fiction, yet in the current context, an enigmatic object behaving in ways that defy prediction, they are not entirely dismissible. The line between hypothesis and wonder blurs, and the audience is left to ponder the boundary between cosmic mechanics and cosmic consciousness. Visualizations from orbiters add a haunting beauty to the narrative. Dust storms catch the low sunlight at oblique angles, creating glowing curtains across canyons. Shadows elongate unnaturally over crater rims, and swirling plumes of fine particles catch in magnetic eddies, painting the atmosphere with ethereal, shifting patterns. Mars is both magnificent and intimidating, a world alive with motion, responding or reacting in ways we cannot fully explain. And just beyond, Atlas drifts, silent, distant, yet intimately connected to the unfolding spectacle by mere proximity. The philosophical reflection grows heavier. If Mars is stirred by forces beyond our comprehension, what does it say about humanity's place in the cosmos? We watch, we measure, we hypothesize, yet we cannot intervene. We are spectators at a vast and unpredictable theater. The storms, magnificent and terrifying, remind us of the scale and indifference of the universe, of the smallness of our presence, and of the subtle ways in which even a wandering rock or artifact from another star could ripple across a planetary body. As the storms continue, sensors record data in unprecedented detail. Surface wind speeds, dust density, magnetic flux. Every measurement adds to a growing archive that may take decades to fully interpret. Yet the narrative remains incomplete. Each day, Atlas moves slightly closer, subtly altering its approach angle. Each night, new storms appear, seemingly unbound by traditional Martian climatology. Observers cannot yet disentangle the natural from the possibly induced, the predictable from the mysterious. And so, humanity watches, caught between fascination and unease. Mars has become a stage for forces we barely understand, with Atlas as both observer and instigator, or perhaps merely as witness. Dust, wind, magnetic flux, all respond in ways that defy prior expectation, yet all are bound by the immutable laws of physics, even if those laws reveal layers of complexity we have yet to unravel. The red planet is no longer passive, it is active, expressive, and astonishing. As the final plumes of dust rise against the thin Martian sky, painting streaks of amber and gold across the horizon, the narrative begins to turn. Mars, stirred by storms both ordinary and extraordinary, waits. Atlas continues its slow passage through space, silent, inscrutable, leaving observers to wonder at the interplay between interstellar object and planetary response. The question remains, is this chaos mere coincidence or the deliberate dance of a cosmic stranger? For as long as humans have looked upward, the sky has been both guide and warning. Stars, planets, and wandering lights in the heavens have charted calendars, dictated harvests, and inspired myths. Yet among the familiar constellations, there have always been strangers, objects that appear without warning, blazing across the night, ephemeral and unsettling. These were the omens, the harbingers that civilizations interpreted as divine messages, threats, or portents of change. Comets, in particular, were feared. Ancient records speak of tales like swords slashing through the sky, of fire, and smoke stretching across the horizon, of celestial lights that defied prediction. They were considered the messengers of gods or the instruments of their wrath. In Babylonian texts, astronomers, priests trained to read the movements of the heavens, recorded guest stars with meticulous care. Their movements were noted alongside earthly events, wars, plagues, and deaths of kings. The unusual appearances of these wandering lights were not mere observations. They were warnings, cosmic annotations of events yet to come. In China, the annals detail broom stars and heavenly snakes streaking across the night sky, each linked to political upheaval or natural disaster. Mesoamerican codices echo similar accounts, depicting fiery serpents, sudden lights, and celestial omens that foretold droughts or floods. Across time and culture, the message was clear. Humanity was never meant to regard the sky as indifferent. Every unexpected visitor was laden with significance. And yet, what history tells us is not only of fear, but also of survival. There are accounts of entire civilizations that flourished under predictable skies, yet faltered when the heavens erupted in the unexpected. The memory of cosmic catastrophe is written in our bones as much as in texts. From the extinction of the dinosaurs, likely triggered by a single massive impact, to the Tunguska event that flattened Siberian forests in a flash of unknown origin, the Earth has long been reminded of its fragility. These events are small compared to cosmic time, yet for humans, their immediacy is terrifying. They remind us that even the smallest interstellar rock, the quietest visitor, can upend the balance of life and reshape the course of history. Now we face Atlas. 3I. Atlas drifts through the solar system, its trajectory seemingly casual, yet its presence is enough to draw our attention, our concern, and our speculation. Unlike asteroids that circle predictably or comets that have been charted for centuries, Atlas is an anomaly. Its speed, its orbit, its cluster of accompanying fragments all defy simple explanation. For the first time in human history, we are witnessing an interstellar visitor whose influence may extend beyond mere physics. And so the shadow of history stretches across our understanding. The celestial bodies that once brought fear, awe, or reverence may now be joined by a visitor whose significance we cannot yet grasp. Reflecting on the records of past cosmic events, one cannot help but notice a pattern. The unfamiliar inspires narrative. When a comet appeared with an unusually bright tail, humans wove stories of God's anger or the end of kings. When meteors struck the Earth, the landscape itself became a testament to unseen forces. What is remarkable, though, is that even in the face of uncertainty, observation persisted. Sky watchers, from Babylon to modern astronomers, attempted to measure, to predict, to understand. And yet, even with all our instruments, all our satellites and telescopes, we are reminded how little we truly control the cosmos. Atlas now enters this lineage of cosmic visitors. Its presence is quiet, almost respectful in its silence, yet it stirs anxiety nonetheless. Could it be a mere rock, shaped by gravity and light years of motion? Or is it something far greater, a relic, a messenger, a deliberately placed anomaly? Every data point, every observation feeds the tension between the natural and the possible, between physics and intention. Scientists debate endlessly, running simulations and testing hypotheses. Some assert that Atlas is simply an interstellar wanderer, a remnant of another star system, obeying only the laws of motion and gravity. Others pause to consider anomalies in its trajectory, its composition, its sudden changes in luminosity. Here, the shadow of history intersects with modern inquiry. We confront the unknown with the tools of reason, yet cannot shake the feeling that the past whispers warnings we have not yet fully understood. Humanity's imagination has always been entwined with our perception of celestial events. Stories of floods, fire, and serpents descending from the sky may sound mythical, yet they echo a deep instinct. The recognition that life on a small planet is vulnerable to the vastness around it. Atlas reminds us of that instinct. We are small, we are fragile. And yet, in that smallness, we watch, we measure, we wonder. The shadow of history is not only a caution, it is a mirror. It shows us our enduring curiosity, our capacity to observe, to learn, to construct narratives in the face of forces we cannot fully command. And yet, the current moment is distinct. Unlike comets of old, Atlas is tracked, catalogued, measured with instruments unimaginable to the ancients. Its passage is known in near real time, its position calculated across millions of kilometers. Still, the uncertainty is tangible. Even with the sophistication of our technology, we cannot predict every ripple in the Martian dust, every pulse of radiation, every subtle gravitational twist. Atlas challenges both our assumptions and our sense of security. History has warned us of the consequences of underestimating the heavens. Today, we are reminded once more. Philosophers and storytellers alike note that human culture often elevates these moments to myth, blending observation with meaning. The stories of gods, monsters, and omens were not mere superstition. They were attempts to interpret phenomena that lay beyond comprehension. Today, we have science, yet the questions remain strikingly familiar. What is this object? What is its purpose? And above all, what does its presence signify for us, for Mars, for the solar system? The ancient fears, distilled over millennia, feel oddly prescient. We are observing the same kind of event that inspired awe and dread in civilizations long vanished, yet now through the lens of reason and technology. In the quiet hours of observation, when telescopes swivel and satellites hum, there is a moment of stillness that echoes the silence of history. Atlas moves through space without haste or apparent malice, yet its existence prompts reflection. Humanity, with all its knowledge and curiosity, is reminded of vulnerability and wonder in equal measure. Cosmic events do not negotiate with civilization. They unfold according to their own laws. And yet, we cannot help but seek patterns, infer meaning, and project significance onto them. The red planet, distant and inscrutable, becomes part of that story. Its surface may tremble under dust and wind, or it may remain largely unchanged. Either way, our attention is fixed, as it has always been when the heavens stir. The shadow of history is not only about fear, it is also about resilience. Civilizations survived comets, meteor impacts, and unexplainable celestial phenomena. Knowledge accumulated, myths transformed into understanding, and humanity persisted. Now, as Atlas approaches Mars, we stand at a threshold, where ancient caution meets modern observation. We catalog its approach, model its path, and prepare for contingencies. But we are also aware that some aspects will remain unknowable. Some aspects will remain, as they always have, in the shadow of history, where the mysterious and the magnificent intertwine. In this reflective space, we return to the central question: is Atlas merely another rock drifting through the void, a simple participant in the long and violent history of cosmic wanderers? Or is it something far greater, an interstellar visitor whose presence has meaning, intentional or not? The answer remains elusive, and perhaps that is the point. Humanity has always been both terrified and fascinated by the sky. The red planet, the storms that rage, the anomalies in gravity and magnetism, and the silent traveler itself, all converge to remind us of our smallness, our curiosity, and the fragile thread upon which our understanding of the universe rests. And so, the shadow of history stretches across our perception, from the ancients who recorded the heavens in clay and papyrus to the scientists peering through high-resolution optics today. It whispers of continuity, of wonder, and of caution. We are reminded that even in an age of unparalleled knowledge, there is still mystery, still awe, still the unmeasured forces that sweep through the cosmos with indifference to human presence. In that awareness, we find a strange comfort, a recognition that to witness such events is to participate in a narrative older than civilization itself. Far from Mars, in the quiet reaches of the solar system, instruments begin to whisper of change. At first, the signals are subtle, so subtle that they are nearly dismissed as noise. Tiny deviations in orbital paths, millisecond variations in the rotation of moons, faint ripples in the plasma streams flowing from the sun. To the untrained eye, nothing appears unusual. The planets still rise, the stars remain fixed, the solar system continues its eternal dance. Yet to the scientists who measure with precision, the cosmos suddenly feels less stable, less predictable, as if something unseen is tugging at the threads of the great celestial fabric. It begins with Phobos, the inner moon of Mars. Orbiting closer to its parent planet than any other moon in the solar system, it is already destined to one day fall. But now, its wobble seems to deepen. High-resolution imaging reveals a slight deviation in its orbital period, a fraction of a second, yet enough to send ripples of alarm across observatories. Was this an error? Or is Phobos responding to the silent presence of Atlas looming nearby? Soon after, reports arrive from farther out. In Jupiter's domain, where massive moons carve pathways through magnetic fields, strange surges are recorded. Io's volcanic plumes shift in timing, as if subtly out of sync with the tidal forces that usually govern them. Europa, with its hidden ocean beneath a crust of ice, registers tiny anomalies in its magnetic response. Observers hesitate to connect the dots, but a phrase emerges in hushed conversations, echoes of Atlas. The solar system is not quiet. It is filled with currents, tides, and storms of invisible energy. Plasma streams flow outward from the sun in spirals, wrapping the planets in delicate webs of electromagnetic interaction. Normally, these patterns are well understood, their turbulence predictable. But now, with Atlas drifting through Mars's neighborhood, the spirals twist unexpectedly. Satellites positioned at Lagrange points detect distortions, almost like ripples spreading across a pond after a stone has been thrown. The question lingers: has Atlas thrown that stone? Or are we simply projecting meaning onto the natural chaos of space? Gravitational mapping complicates the story further. Sensitive instruments on Earth and in orbit track the subtle tug of mass across the solar system. When a comet passes, when an asteroid shifts, these instruments can detect the influence. Yet now, a pattern emerges, that does not fit the models. Somewhere in the equations, there is a weight unaccounted for, a pull that does not align with visible matter. Could Atlas be more massive than it appears? Or is it distorting the space around it, bending the very geometry of the cosmos in ways we cannot yet measure? The echoes are not merely physical. In the scientific community, debates grow heated. Some argue these anomalies are coincidence, an alignment of unrelated fluctuations, exaggerated by the heightened attention surrounding Atlas. After all, space is vast and unpredictable. Small deviations are inevitable. But others, quieter and more cautious, suggest something deeper. They point to the clustering of anomalies, the timing, the way the disturbances seem to radiate outward from Mars like ripples on water. If this were mere coincidence, why now? Why here? Philosophers, too, step into the conversation. They remind us that the solar system has never been a closed system. It has always existed within a greater cosmic ocean. Comets wander in, asteroids scatter outward, radiation washes through unseen. But Atlas is different. Its path is not one of return, like Halley's Comet, nor one of ancient residency, like the asteroids. It is an interloper, a trespasser from another star. And perhaps the solar system itself responds to such intrusions, as though the fabric of space resists being disturbed. History echoes here as well. In the past, when comets appeared, entire societies felt their influence, whether real or imagined. Crops failed, kings died, wars began, events that were woven into the fabric of the celestial appearance. Now, in our age of instruments and equations, the influence is measured not in human fate, but in data streams and orbital paths. Yet the feeling is the same. Something is stirring, and its presence cannot be ignored. The echoes extend to Earth itself. Subtle shifts in radio signals bounce differently across the ionosphere. Deep space networks occasionally report strange fluctuations, as though signals bend slightly more than expected. To most, these are statistical errors, technical noise. But within research labs, they are carefully cataloged, added to a growing ledger of phenomena that seem to hum with the same mysterious signature. And then comes the most unsettling observation of all, the outer heliosphere, the invisible boundary where the Sun's influence meets the interstellar medium, flickers. Instruments aboard the Voyager probes, still whispering from the edge of interstellar space, detect irregularities in the cosmic winds. The solar bubble, vast and tenuous, seems to quiver as if nudged by something unseen. Could Atlas, even at Mars, project influence so far outward? Or are we glimpsing a resonance, a harmony of disturbance that stretches across unimaginable distances? The story deepens when simulations are run. If Atlas possessed an unusual mass, if it carried with it a dense gravitational field, or worse, if it warped space-time itself, the anomalies might be explained. But the numbers do not add up. Atlas is not large enough to account for the effects. Unless, of course, mass is not the only factor. Unless Atlas interacts with dark matter, or carries within it some form of energy we cannot yet define. These are not conclusions, but questions. And it is the questions themselves that linger like whispers across the scientific landscape. There is a peculiar irony in these discussions. For centuries, humanity assumed the solar system to be a stable clockwork, a grand mechanism governed by immutable laws. Now, under the gaze of Atlas, the certainty falters. The clock still ticks, but its hands tremble. The pendulum swings, but its arc feels askew. The echoes across the solar system remind us that even the vast, seemingly eternal dance of planets and moons may be vulnerable to disruption. And so we return to the heart of the mystery. Is Atlas causing these anomalies, bending the paths of moons, warping plasma flows, stirring gravitational fields? Or are these effects simply the solar system's natural turbulence, amplified by our heightened awareness, interpreted through the lens of unease? The line between cause and coincidence blurs, and in that uncertainty, awe takes root. For the scientists who watch the data scroll across their screens, the answer matters. For the poets, the philosophers, and the dreamers, perhaps the uncertainty itself is the answer. A visitor from beyond the stars enters our system, and the cosmos trembles, or seems to tremble, in reply. Whether real or imagined, the echoes ripple outward, uniting us in wonder and in dread. The solar system feels alive, restless, aware. Mars is no longer the only witness. Its moons, its neighboring planets, even the distant frontier of the heliosphere seem to murmur in response. Atlas does not simply pass unnoticed. It casts a shadow across the vast stage of space, one that stretches farther than any single object should. And as humanity watches, measuring, speculating, the question grows more haunting. Is Atlas merely moving through the solar system, or is the solar system itself responding to its presence? In the beginning, when Atlas first appeared, most assumed it was just another comet. A fragment from the great icy reservoirs that surround the solar system, nudged inward by some gravitational quirk, destined to make its brief pass before vanishing again into darkness. It was the simplest explanation, and perhaps for that reason, the most comforting. But comfort rarely lasts in the face of data. The object's behavior soon defied expectations. Its path bent too easily, as though it resisted neat prediction. Its brightness fluctuated in unusual patterns, sometimes dimming when it should flare, sometimes glowing as though lit from within. Around it, fragments appeared, not the usual debris of a disintegrating comet, but something more disciplined, more structured. And then came the pulses, subtle, rhythmic emissions that seemed too deliberate to ignore. The debates began, and from those debates, a spectrum of theories arose, each one a lens through which humanity tried to make sense of the inexplicable. The first and most grounded theory was the natural comet hypothesis. To many astronomers, Atlas was simply a visitor like Oumuamua or Borisov before it, an interstellar traveler of ice and dust, sculpted by physics, nothing more. Its oddities, they argued, could be explained by outgassing, by jets of sublimating ice propelling it unpredictably, by irregular surfaces that reflected light in strange ways. Even the swarm of fragments might be explained as a natural consequence of stresses in its icy body. This was the voice of caution, the voice that reminded us that space is full of wonders that appear stranger than they truly are. Do not rush to mystery, the scientists said. Nature is stranger and subtler than our imagination often allows. Yet even among the cautious, unease lingered. For while comets fracture, few fracture in such a patterned way. While comets brighten and dim, few do so with rhythm. While comets outgas, none have ever pulsed. And so others advanced a second, bolder hypothesis, the alien probe theory. To them, Atlas's peculiarities were not flaws in nature but signs of design. Perhaps it was a machine, ancient, derelict, or still alive. A probe sent across interstellar gulfs by an intelligence unknown to us. Some compared it to our own Voyager spacecraft, fragile messengers cast outward into the stars, perhaps now arriving in another system and stirring similar debates. If we launch machines into the dark, why should we assume others would not? This theory thrilled the imagination, but it also terrified. If Atlas were a probe, was it merely observing, or was it here for a purpose? And why Mars? Why now? The questions multiplied faster than the answers. A third theory rose from the shadows of speculation, the self-sustaining structure. In this view, Atlas was neither a natural body nor a single machine, but something more extraordinary. A cluster of fragments moving together not by chance, but by design. Perhaps a swarm of self-replicating probes, each fragment a seed of machinery, capable of copying itself, learning, adapting. The thought was unnerving, a system designed not as a solitary visitor, but as a collective, a colony drifting between the stars. Here, the tone shifted from curiosity to dread. For such a structure, if it were true, would imply intent, not of a single machine, but of a civilization capable of building lifelike collectives on scales we can barely imagine. A civilization for whom entire planets might be experiments or stepping stones. And yet, beyond even these unsettling visions, there emerged another theory, the cosmic seed. Some thinkers, both scientific and philosophical, suggested that Atlas might not be a machine at all, but something closer to life. Not in the sense we know, not with cells or DNA, but life as pattern, as energy, as purpose, a seed cast into the void, carrying with it the potential to awaken dormant worlds. Was Mars being tested? Was it being awakened? Was Atlas bringing something with it? Something not made of steel and circuits, but of energy, resonance, possibility? The idea sounds fanciful. And yet, when faced with anomalies beyond measure, humanity has often turned to metaphors of growth, of planting, of seeding. Each of these theories, comet, probe, swarm, seed, was argued fiercely. Each had evidence that could support it, and evidence that eroded it. None could claim certainty. But what lingers most is not the theories themselves, but what they reveal about us. For when we look to the sky and see something we do not understand, we project ourselves upon it. To the cautious, Atlas is natural, because they seek order. To the hopeful, Atlas is a messenger, because they long for connection. To the fearful, Atlas is a weapon, because they know conflict. To the dreamers, Atlas is a seed, because they believe in renewal. In this way, Atlas becomes less a physical object and more a mirror. It reflects our fears, our hopes, our ignorance, and our wonder. It forces us to ask questions that reach beyond astronomy into philosophy itself. What do we consider life? What do we consider intelligence? What stories do we tell ourselves when faced with the unknown? And perhaps that is the most humbling theory of all, that Atlas may be none of these things, that it may simply be what it is, a piece of the cosmos drifting through, indifferent to our gaze, unaffected by our meaning. And yet, in observing it, in wrestling with its mysteries, we change ourselves. We grow, we wonder. The first theories are not answers, they are invitations. Invitations to imagine, to speculate, to stretch the boundaries of thought, to remind us that science begins not with certainty, but with questions whispered into the silence. And so the debates continue. On Earth, in observatories, in universities, in coffee shops late at night. People argue, people dream, people reflect. No consensus forms, only a widening horizon of possibility. For now, Atlas remains what it has always been, a stranger drifting through our skies. Whether comet or probe, swarm or seed, we do not know. Perhaps we will never know. And perhaps that is the point. Because in the end, the mystery is not just about Atlas. It is about us, about how we respond when faced with the incomprehensible. Do we fear? Do we wonder? Do we reach for meaning even when none is given? And so the chapter closes with humility, the only conclusion possible. All we know is that we do not know. But the story does not rest here. For as theories multiply, so too do observations. And soon, whispers emerge that Atlas's influence on Mars is more profound than anyone had dared to imagine. The stage shifts, and with it, the question. Is Mars becoming a laboratory under the gaze of an interstellar stranger? Mars has always been the silent twin of Earth, a planet of deserts, mountains, and canyons, waiting patiently in the cold, its history written in dust and stone. But under the watchful presence of Atlas, some scientists began to whisper a chilling possibility. What if Mars is no longer just a world? What if it has become an experiment? The suggestion emerged quietly at first. A handful of researchers noticed patterns that seemed too coincidental, too synchronized. The magnetic disturbances near Atlas's approach, the sudden intensification of dust storms that obscured entire hemispheres, the luminous glow across the Martian atmosphere, appearing almost in rhythm with the pulses from Atlas itself. Each fact alone could be explained, solar activity, natural cycles, randomness. But together, they formed a pattern that was harder to ignore. And so, the question was asked, what if Atlas is not a passive visitor at all? What if it is active? The idea split the scientific community. On one side were those who clung to the principle of parsimony, the belief that the simplest explanations are often the most correct. Mars, they argued, is a volatile world. Its thin atmosphere makes it vulnerable to extreme storms. Its dust-laden plains are prone to upheaval. To link these changes to Atlas was to fall into the trap of seeing intention where there is none. But on the other side were those who dared to think otherwise. They asked, if an advanced intelligence wished to test its influence, where would it begin? Not with Earth, too complex, too fragile. Not with the Sun, too powerful, too vast, but with Mars, a planet on the edge of habitability, a simpler system, a laboratory waiting in the shadows. Mars as the experiment. The phrase spread quickly, from academic papers to late-night debates, from whispered speculation in observatories to front-page headlines. It carried with it an almost mythological weight, as though the god of war himself had been chosen for a trial. And yet, beneath the poetry, there was a hard edge of fear. For if Mars was the experiment, then the next question was unavoidable. What comes after Mars? The philosophers were the first to wrestle with this. To them, the idea was almost archetypal. For centuries, humanity has dreamed of tests, of trials, of higher beings watching from the skies. From the gods of Olympus to the angels of Scripture, from the watchers of Sumerian myth to the cosmic overseers of modern science fiction, the motif is the same. Humanity observed, judged, measured. Atlas, they suggested, might be the latest incarnation of this story, an experimenter whose methods are written not in parables, but in plasma and dust. But philosophers also warned against the dangers of projection. We speak of experiments because we are the species that experiments. We observe, measure, test, alter. We assume others, whether gods, aliens, or cosmic forces, would act as we do. Perhaps Atlas is not experimenting at all. Perhaps it simply exists, and Mars just happens to lie in its path. The dread is not in Atlas's intention, but in our own reflection staring back at us. Still, the idea of experiment lingered, fed by new observations. Martian dust storms continued to grow. Instruments detected faint changes in atmospheric chemistry, subtle shifts in trace gases, methane plumes rising and falling in ways that seemed linked to Atlas's presence. Some probes reported electromagnetic disturbances that caused glitches in communication, as though signals were being probed, echoed, tested. It was as if Mars were no longer behaving like itself, as if the planet were being nudged, gently but deliberately, into a new state. The most unsettling thought was voiced in a quiet press conference by a planetary scientist who looked more exhausted than afraid. "If this is an experiment," she said, "then the planet is not the subject. It is the tool. The real subject is us." What she meant was simple and terrifying. Every storm on Mars, every glow in its skies, every anomaly in its data was not just for the sake of Mars. It was for the sake of those watching, for humanity, to see how we would react, to measure our curiosity, our fear, our resilience. Mars as a stage and humanity as the audience, unwittingly taking part in a test we do not understand. The idea sank deep into the public imagination. Was Atlas altering Mars to gauge our response? To test whether we recognize the signs of control? Was it seeing if we panic, if we adapt, if we attempt to communicate, or if we turn away and deny what we see? In this light, Mars became a mirror, not just a neighbor. Its storms and glows became signals, coded messages of a kind not written in mathematics but in theater, a performance written in dust and light. And then came the darker reflection. What if the experiment does not stop at Mars? What if Earth is next? The idea sent shivers through scientific circles and ordinary people alike. If Mars is being altered, then Earth, so much more complex, so much more fragile, would be infinitely more vulnerable. A nudge in our atmosphere, a disruption in our magnetic field, a subtle shift in orbital resonance, any of these could have devastating effects. And if the changes are intentional, if they are deliberate, then the experiment may already be unfolding. We might simply be too immersed in our own world to notice. Some argued this fear was misplaced. They pointed out that experiments are not always destructive. Perhaps Atlas was testing the boundaries of planetary systems, searching for worlds that could be revived, altered, made habitable. Perhaps Mars was being awakened, not destroyed. In that case, Atlas was not a destroyer, but a gardener, seeding possibilities, cultivating worlds. If so, then perhaps Earth was not a target, but a partner, a civilization invited to witness the process. But even this hopeful vision carried unease. For if Atlas was cultivating, then whose garden was it planting? And what role do we play in that garden? Are we flowers or weeds? At the heart of all these debates lay a deeper question, one older than science itself. Are we alone in shaping our destiny? Or are we part of a larger pattern, watched and measured by forces we barely comprehend? Mars as the experiment. It is an idea that blends dread with awe, fear with wonder, a reminder that when we gaze at the red planet under Atlas's shadow, we are not just looking at geology or weather. We are looking at a stage, a canvas on which something larger may be painting. And yet, for all the speculation, one truth remained. No matter how closely scientists studied Mars, no matter how much data they gathered, the meaning remained elusive. The patterns could suggest intention. The anomalies could suggest control. But certainty lay forever just out of reach. And perhaps that is the essence of the experiment itself. To leave us suspended in uncertainty, trapped between fear and wonder, forced to confront not just what Atlas is doing to Mars, but what we become in response. Because in the end, the experiment may not be about planets at all. It may be about the human mind, our capacity to wonder, to fear, to imagine, to adapt. And in that sense, the experiment is already working. As Atlas drifts on, Mars turns slowly beneath its gaze, a silent laboratory bathed in storms and shadows. And humanity, watching from across the void, finds itself asking the one question it cannot escape. If Mars is the experiment, then what are we? But the questions will only grow sharper. For as scientists begin to track the object's deeper effects, they notice ripples spreading beyond Mars, subtle echoes throughout the solar system itself. And that leads us into the next chapter, Echoes Beyond the Red Planet. Since the dawn of human thought, the sky has been more than a backdrop. It has been a canvas, a theater, a source of wonder and fear. Our ancestors looked upward and saw patterns, stories, and warnings etched in stars and fire. And now, as Atlas hovers in the Martian sky, luminous and strange, we find ourselves reaching for those ancient myths again. For the people of Mesopotamia, comets and wandering stars were not simply objects. They were messengers of the gods. The Sumerians recorded tales of the Anunnaki, sky beings who descended to shape the fates of humankind. A sudden bright object could mean judgment, war, or divine instruction. When they gazed upward, they did not see ice and rock. They saw intention. They saw purpose. The Greeks, too, painted the heavens with gods and omens. Zeus hurled lightning bolts across the sky. Apollo's chariot carried the sun itself, and Artemis guided hunters beneath the silver glow of the moon. But among their stories was also dread. The appearance of a fiery star often meant upheaval, war, or the death of kings. For them, the sky was not a void. It was alive, watchful, and unpredictable. In India, the Vedic texts spoke of beings who rode in vimanas, flying chariots powered by unknown forces. Some descriptions read like poetry, others like technological memory. Glowing craft that traversed the skies, descending with thunder and fire. Were these visions allegory, or something witnessed, then remembered in myth? The Norse spoke of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, when fiery signs in the heavens would precede the final battle. Flaming stars, wolves devouring the sun and moon, the collapse of the known order. Their sky was a warning, a clock counting down to chaos. And in Mesoamerica, the Maya and the Aztec recorded the heavens with extraordinary precision. They tracked cycles of Venus and comets, tying them to prophecy. A sudden blaze in the sky could mean conquest, famine, or the birth of a new age. Their myths did not separate science from story. The two were one, the motions of the stars carrying both astronomical and spiritual weight. In every corner of the world, from the Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime to the myths of Polynesian navigators, the message is the same. The sky is not empty. It is inhabited. It speaks, if only we know how to listen. And so, as humanity turns its gaze to Atlas, we find the old stories echoing in our minds. The glowing pulses that ripple from its body recall the rhythmic signals once interpreted as the drums of gods. The strange storms on Mars resemble the trials set by divine beings in countless myths. The silence it keeps feels deliberate, much like the silence of gods who reveal themselves only in glimpses. Did our ancestors witness something like this before? It is a question that haunts both scholars and dreamers. Ancient texts are filled with accounts of fiery chariots, flaming wheels, and stars that move against the order of heaven. The prophet Ezekiel in the Old Testament described a vision of wheels within wheels, shining with fire, accompanied by beings of unimaginable form. Was this a metaphor, a dream, or an attempt to describe something real in the language of the time? The Roman historian Pliny recorded how comets often preceded great disasters, wars, plagues, and the deaths of leaders. The Chinese astronomers of antiquity kept meticulous records of celestial anomalies, noting how their appearances coincided with shifts in dynasties and the fall of empires. To them, the sky was not random. It was a system of signs, a divine ledger that wrote history before it unfolded. Today, science tells us these were coincidences. Celestial events and earthly disasters are separate. Their overlap, a trick of pattern. The Martian horizon has always been painted in dust. A quiet, red desert stretching endlessly under a thin, pale sky. But in recent months, that familiar stillness has changed. Something new now breathes in the air above Mars. Strange lights shimmer where there should be none, and the planet's sky, once muted, predictable, and silent, has begun to glow with unearthly beauty. It began with faint auroras, wisps of green and violet dancing across the poles, far brighter and more frequent than any seen before. Normally, auroras on Mars are weak, rare, and scattered. The planet lacks the strong magnetic field of Earth, leaving little to guide the solar wind into glowing curtains. But these displays did not fade with time. They grew, wrapping themselves across latitudes far from the poles until whole swaths of Martian night were veiled in light. Scientists rushed to explain. Perhaps solar activity was stronger than expected. Perhaps dust storms had stirred particles high into the thin air, creating new pathways for charged energy. But some observers noted the timing. The auroras seemed to ripple in step with Atlas itself, as though the interstellar visitor was painting the sky with its own hand. Soon came the veils. Sheets of faint, luminous haze draped across the Martian horizon like fabric catching invisible winds. At first, they appeared subtle, barely discernible through orbiting cameras. But with each passing week, the veils grew thicker, brighter, and more surreal. They did not behave like ordinary clouds. They shimmered with colors unknown to Mars, faint blues and purples, a spectral play of light that defied expectation. One rover recorded the strange phenomenon just after sunset. The sun had dipped below the horizon, but the sky did not darken as it should. Instead, a silver glow hung overhead, rippling like water. Scientists compared it to Earth's noctilucent clouds, high, icy crystals that catch sunlight after dusk. Yet the altitude was wrong. The temperature was wrong. The chemistry was wrong. Something in Mars' upper atmosphere was being stirred into radiance. And then came the flares. Sudden bursts of light erupting across the Martian sky with no warning. At first, they resembled meteor trails, sharp streaks cutting through the thin air. But instruments revealed no incoming debris, no showers of rock or ice. The flares were not entering from space. They were blooming from within the sky itself, as though Mars were cracking open light. One particularly bright flare was captured by the ExoMars orbiter. It expanded across an entire hemisphere in seconds, a silent explosion of brilliance that lit the ground below in ghostly white. Dust dunes, craters, and mountains all glowed for an instant before the darkness returned. No sound, no shockwave, no heat, only light, arriving and vanishing as quickly as a breath. The images spread across Earth like wildfire. News outlets called them the eyes of Mars. Commentators wondered aloud if they were signals, flares lit by Atlas, directed at us through the red planet's sky. Skeptics countered with theories of atmospheric static, plasma events, or photochemical reactions. But beneath every explanation was unease. If Mars was changing, if its very atmosphere was alive with forces we could not predict, what role did Atlas play in the transformation? For some, the beauty of it was undeniable. The Martian sky had never looked so alive. Veils glowing like auroras, skies rippling with strange colors, sudden flares igniting the darkness. It was as though the planet had awoken from slumber, stretching itself into visibility for the first time in eons. Images streamed back to Earth were not sterile scientific captures. They were breathtaking art, a cosmic gallery drawn across the heavens of another world. But beauty can be unsettling. A shimmering veil is only beautiful until it hints at danger. A sudden flare is only wondrous until one wonders if it is a warning. Philosophers asked, what are we truly witnessing? Transformation or omen? Is Atlas reshaping Mars deliberately? Or is this an accident of proximity, a consequence of energies spilling into the red planet's fragile atmosphere? Some theories suggested interaction. Perhaps Atlas emits charged particles, unseen except in their effect upon Mars. Perhaps it releases electromagnetic pulses that rattle the upper layers of atmosphere, stirring dormant plasma into glowing veils. Or perhaps, more provocatively, the lights are not accidental at all. They are chosen, directed. Signals written not in language, but in spectacle. Others reached into mythology. In almost every ancient culture, lights in the sky carried meaning. To the Norse, it was the shimmering armor of Valkyries. To the Chinese, auroras were dragons coursing through the heavens. To the Maori, they were the fires of ancestors burning at the edge of the world. Today, under the glow of Martian veils, we find ourselves echoing those same interpretations. Are we watching a natural event or a message in mythic disguise? The longer Atlas lingers, the stronger the lights seem to become. Martian nights are no longer truly dark. In places, the surface glows faintly under a sky that never rests. Dust storms catch the illumination, scattering it across the desert until the land itself appears to breathe. From orbit, the planet looks strangely alive, its edges pulsing faintly, as though its skin were warming beneath the gaze of its interstellar visitor. Astronomers are careful, cautious. They remind us that Mars has always been a place of surprises. Dust devils taller than skyscrapers, storms that can engulf the entire planet, seasonal carbon dioxide ice caps that crack and vanish. To add auroras, veils, and flares to the list may not mean interference. It may simply be another page in Mars' book of strangeness. And yet, in quiet moments, many admit their doubts. The timing is uncanny. The lights grew only after Atlas drew near. The patterns in their rhythm seem to echo the pulses already recorded from Atlas itself. Coincidence is possible, but so is causation. So we ask ourselves, as watchers of the sky, are we looking at a planet in transformation or a planet under warning? Has Atlas chosen Mars as a stage, painting its sky with veils and fire to show us something? Or are we merely witnesses to a natural resonance, one that unsettles us only because it feels so intentional? The horizon of Mars now burns with questions as much as with light. Every flare, every shimmering veil, every unexpected aurora forces us to reflect on our place as spectators. The red planet has become a mirror, reflecting not only the energies of space, but the anxieties and wonder of our species. And so the red horizon glows, calm yet ominous, as if keeping secrets. We wait, breath held, wondering if this is beauty for beauty's sake, or a message we have yet to understand. But Mars is not finished with its revelations, for beyond the lights, beyond the shimmering veils, storms begin to gather. And what begins with beauty may yet deepen into fury. And as Mars grows stranger beneath Atlas's gaze, Earth cannot remain silent. Humanity reacts, sometimes with awe, sometimes with fear, sometimes with imagination. For the true story of Atlas is not only written in the sky above Mars, but also in the hearts and minds of those watching from afar. On Earth, beneath our own familiar skies, the story of Atlas unfolds not just in the stars, but in the minds and voices of billions. For while the object itself drifts silently near Mars, its echoes resound here through glowing screens, whispered prayers, anxious debates, and midnight conversations. Humanity, as it always has, is reacting to the unknown. The first wave is fascination. Images of Mars' strange veils and shimmering skies flood the internet. News outlets loop the auroras endlessly, dramatizing each flare as though the planet itself were alive. Headlines grow bolder. The red planet awakens. Alien lights over Mars. Atlas stirs the war god. Each image, each phrase, fans the flames of curiosity. Social media becomes a storm of speculation. Some compare Atlas to Oumuamua, claiming it must be another probe, this time far more active. Others craft digital art, painting Mars as a glowing eye staring back at Earth. Hashtags trend globally. You Atlas lights, you red horizon, you signals from Mars. In living rooms, cafes, lecture halls, and temples, conversations turn again and again to a single question: what is it doing? But alongside fascination comes fear. Not loud, not panicked, but quiet, insidious, creeping into thought. In every culture, there are those who read omens in the skies. Prophets proclaim warnings that Atlas heralds judgment, that Mars will soon awaken as a god of war to chastise a reckless humanity. Ancient scriptures are revisited, words once long forgotten now given new weight. The Book of Revelation, the Popol Vuh, the prophecies of Nostradamus. Each is dusted off, searching for lines that could apply to a glowing red planet under a visitor's gaze. In some places, communities gather under the night sky, praying toward Mars as though it has become a new star of destiny. In others, fear takes stranger forms. Markets surge with survival gear, water supplies, radiation shielding. Small cults emerge, claiming to know the truth of Atlas, whether as savior, destroyer, or silent watcher. Yet the scientific community remains cautious. In universities and observatories, the tone is measured, careful, deliberate. Correlation is not causation, one astronomer repeats, again and again. They remind us that Mars is volatile, that dust storms can grow without warning, that auroras need no alien hand to burn. But even within science, doubts flicker. Conference halls fill with debates, with new papers posted daily, some arguing for natural explanations, others daring to suggest something more. And so the reactions divide: fascination, fear, caution. But beneath them all lies the same truth. We are unsettled because Atlas resists clarity. And in that resistance, it becomes a mirror. Throughout history, humanity has faced moments like this. The first comets that blazed across ancient skies, the eclipses that turned day into night, the sudden appearance of guest stars, supernovae, recorded in Chinese chronicles and Mayan codices. Each time, our ancestors asked the same questions. What does it mean? Why now? What are the heavens telling us? And each time, the answers reflected not the sky, but ourselves. Today, under Atlas's influence, the cycle repeats. Scientists peer upward and see equations. Philosophers see riddles. Prophets see judgment. Artists see inspiration. And ordinary people, staring at the glowing red point of Mars, feel something deeper, an awe that cannot be easily named. The media frenzy does not abate. Every small anomaly becomes breaking news. A magnetic distortion here, a sudden flare there. Anchors speak with urgency. Panelists speculate with conviction, though none truly know. The spectacle itself becomes the story. In times of uncertainty, the unknown is never silent. It is filled with voices, each competing to define it. Meanwhile, governments react quietly, in their own ways. Behind closed doors, agencies meet. Defense officials ask if Atlas could pose a threat to satellites, to missions, to Earth itself. Contingency plans are dusted off, though few are shared with the public. The world is reminded once again how little power we truly have before the movements of the cosmos. But humanity's reaction is not only fear, there is also wonder. In classrooms, children look at images of Mars' glowing skies with fascination, dreaming of becoming scientists, explorers, poets. Artists paint Atlas into murals and novels. Musicians compose symphonies inspired by its silent passage. In a strange way, Atlas gives back to us what the night sky has always given, a canvas for imagination. Philosophers write essays on the meaning of contact, not contact with aliens, but contact with mystery itself. They remind us that to witness something beyond explanation is itself a gift. That perhaps Atlas's greatest message is not destruction or salvation, but the reminder that the universe is larger than our categories, richer than our understanding. And so, humanity reacts in 1,000 ways. Some tremble, some hope, some deny, some worship. But all in their own way are united by a common thread. We cannot look away. It is easy to imagine that we are divided by our interpretations. Yet in truth, Atlas has done what few forces ever could. It has given us a shared horizon. Whether in wonder or in fear, billions of eyes turn to Mars, billions of minds ask the same questions. In a fractured world, the stars remind us that there is still something greater, something we all belong to. Late at night, when the media chatter has faded, when the debates quiet, there is only the sky, a faint red point glowing in the darkness. And in that glow, a reminder, we are watchers, fragile and curious, forever looking outward for meaning. The human reaction, in the end, is the same as it always has been. Wonder, fear, imagination. 3 pillars of our response to the unknown. And perhaps it is not Atlas that matters most, but the way we reveal ourselves in its presence. And yet, the story does not rest here. For as Earth watches and reacts, Mars itself continues to shift. Beneath its red horizon, stranger changes unfold, changes that may transform not only how we see the planet, but how we understand life itself. Because on Mars, beneath the veils and storms, something deeper stirs. Instruments whisper of a magnetic field flickering back to life. A planet once thought dead, now trembling with possibility. And so the question grows, is Mars awakening under Atlas's gaze? For centuries, Mars has been regarded as a silent world, a desert frozen in time, stripped of its shield, stripped of its breath. Long ago, it had oceans, rivers, and skies thick with air. But the collapse of its magnetic field left it exposed, vulnerable to the solar wind. Bit by bit, the atmosphere was torn away. The seas boiled into space. Mars became the husk we know today, a cold, rust-red monument to loss. Yet now, something has changed. The latest readings from orbiters and rovers whisper of an anomaly. Instruments detect faint magnetic pulses, irregular, flickering, as if something long dead is twitching back to life. At first, the signals are dismissed as noise, interference from solar activity, or the electromagnetic halo of Atlas itself. But as more data flows in, the pattern sharpens. Mars's magnetic field, dormant for billions of years, shows signs of returning. The world holds its breath. If true, it would rewrite planetary science. Planets do not simply reignite their magnetic shields. The molten core of Mars was thought to have cooled ages ago, its dynamo forever extinguished. A planet without a magnetic field is a planet without protection, condemned to erosion, to death. Yet here, under Atlas's silent watch, Mars stirs again. The implications are staggering. Could this be a natural process, hidden until now? Some scientists suggest seismic activity deep within Mars may have triggered convection in the core, restarting a feeble dynamo. Others argue the pulses are too irregular, too sudden. They seem less like a natural awakening and more like interference, an external force tugging at the planet's heart. And so the great question emerges: is this resurrection or manipulation? The narrative splits along two paths. In one, Mars is reclaiming its destiny. Perhaps the planet was never truly dead, only sleeping, waiting for the right conditions to stir. Perhaps what we see is not interference, but coincidence, Atlas arriving at the very moment Mars' inner rhythms awaken. If so, it would mean Mars is not a graveyard, but a chrysalis, capable of change, capable of rebirth. In the other path, the story is far darker. What if Atlas is not a mere observer, but an agent of transformation? Its presence could be injecting energy into the Martian interior, twisting magnetic fields into existence. If so, Mars is no longer its own. It has become a subject of experiment, a planet rewritten under an alien hand. The evidence builds. Dust storms grow fiercer, as if energized by invisible currents. Auroras bloom brighter, fueled by interactions between the solar wind and this flickering shield. Even the ground itself shows tremors, subtle quakes, hinting at motion deep within. The red planet no longer seems inert. It feels alive, restless, uneasy, and humanity watches, transfixed. Some hail this as a miracle, the revival of a world once lost. They imagine Mars with skies once again, seas filling its ancient basins, life finding foothold in valleys where once only dust lay. For the dreamers of terraforming, this is the ultimate gift, a planet rebuilding itself before our eyes. But others are troubled. If Atlas can stir a planet, what might it do elsewhere? If it can rewrite Mars, could Earth too fall under its influence? And if this is intentional, what purpose could it serve? Philosophers turn the question inward. If Mars is no longer dead, what does that say about death itself? Can worlds die, or are they simply awaiting transformation? Does Atlas reveal that even planets are impermanent, capable of cycles we never imagined? The cultural echoes return. Ancient myths of gods who bring life or take it away seem strangely relevant. In Egyptian lore, Osiris dies and is reborn, carrying the promise of renewal. In Hindu cosmology, Shiva destroys, but also clears the path for Brahma to create anew. Perhaps Mars itself has become such a figure, destroyed once, reborn now, a planet resurrected under cosmic witness. Yet the scientific community remains torn. Some urge restraint, warning against leaping to conclusions. We must assume natural processes first, they insist. But the more data arrives, the harder it becomes to ignore the timing. Why now? Why, after billions of years of silence, should Mars awaken precisely when Atlas drifts nearby? The debate becomes a mirror of humanity's deeper unease. If Atlas is involved, it implies intention. And intention implies will. And will implies agency. an object no longer just drifting, but acting. For the public, the reactions divide once again. Optimists imagine Mars reborn, a gift to future generations, a stepping stone to a new home. Pessimists see only manipulation, a harbinger of dangers yet to come. Religious voices frame it as divine intervention, a sign of the end or the beginning. But beneath the noise lies a quiet, sobering realization. If a planet can change so suddenly, then our assumptions about permanence crumble. Mars, once a symbol of desolation, has become a stage for possibility. And in that possibility, humanity glimpses both hope and dread. For astronauts and space agencies, the stakes are practical. Missions to Mars, planned and dreamed of for decades, suddenly face new uncertainties. If the planet is in flux, can it be landed upon safely? If the atmosphere thickens, if radiation levels change, if magnetic storms intensify, what does that mean for explorers? The very plans for human colonization hang in the balance, and yet, the allure grows stronger. To set foot on a planet in transition would be to witness the rarest of miracles, a world in the act of becoming. Scientists clamor for more instruments, more probes, more eyes on Mars. Funding surges. The planet that once seemed static now burns with urgency. Still, one haunting question lingers. If Atlas is responsible, is this transition permanent or merely a phase? Is Mars being restored or repurposed? Is the flickering field a prelude to life or to something we cannot yet imagine? The data continues to stream in, painting a picture of a planet caught between two states, no longer dead, not yet alive. A liminal world suspended in change. And in that fragile balance, humanity sees itself. We too live on a world shielded by a magnetic field, balanced between chaos and order. We too depend on invisible forces to protect us. Mars's flicker is a reminder. What we take as eternal is anything but. As the chapter closes, one thought rises above all others. Mars is no longer the silent witness it once was. Under Atlas's gaze, it has become a participant in the drama. Its skies, its storms, its very core, all shifting in response to a presence we barely understand. Whether this is resurrection or interference, gift or experiment, no one can yet say. But the transformation has begun. And the story of Mars, our ancient twin, our imagined frontier, is being rewritten before our eyes. What kind of intelligence or force could give rise to something like Atlas? The question hums at the edge of every observation, every calculation. Its silent drift, its gravitational peculiarities, its strange pulses. All of it hints at design, yet gives nothing away. We are left with shadows and speculation. Perhaps in that ambiguity lies its greatest power, to provoke imagination without ever confirming itself. One possibility is the simplest, that Atlas is not a machine, not a probe, not even an object in the way we conceive. Perhaps it is a natural wanderer, born from the chaotic womb of interstellar clouds, sculpted by physics alone. And yet, even if natural, its scale and timing raise questions. Could nature itself be the architect? Could the universe have woven this object not for us, but with us in mind, as though stars and gravity conspired to create a mirror to our fears and hopes? Others take a bolder step. They imagine Atlas as the work of a civilization so advanced, its creations blur into what we would call nature. Just as ants cannot fathom the intentions behind a skyscraper, perhaps we cannot fathom the hands that shaped this visitor. To such beings, building something like Atlas might be no more remarkable than laying a stone on the ground. But then, what is it? A probe? A monument? A seed? Some theorists speak of self-sustaining structures, vast organisms made of stone and plasma, roaming between stars, gathering energy, scattering fragments like spores across the void. Could Atlas be one such entity, alive in ways we do not yet recognize? If so, then silence is not absence. It is language. We simply lack the ears to hear. Others suggest it may not be alive at all, but an archive. Imagine a time when civilizations older than ours looked at the cosmos with the same hunger for meaning. Perhaps they sent monuments into the void, repositories of knowledge, coded not in words or symbols, but in the very fabric of matter and energy. Atlas could be one such archive, a cosmic time capsule, adrift for eons, now intersecting our tiny solar stage. And yet, the possibility lingers that it is not meant for us. Perhaps it drifts along a path billions of years in the making, a course that barely brushes our world by accident. To think otherwise may be human arrogance. We long for meaning, so we weave it. But perhaps Atlas is not a message, not a sign, not a mirror. Perhaps it is simply there, its silence reminding us that the universe owes us no answers. Still, speculation runs deeper. Some scientists propose that if Atlas is constructed, its makers may not even exist anymore. Civilizations rise, flourish, and fade. Perhaps Atlas is a relic of a people long gone, their final gesture a stone cast into the ocean of space. If so, then we are not watching intention, but aftermath, the cosmic echo of a voice already extinct. But what if they do still exist? The thought tightens the chest. If Atlas is a creation, then its makers may be watching, observing us as we observe ants crawling along the earth. We wonder, are we being tested, judged, or simply catalogued, a brief entry in some unfathomable survey of worlds? The silence makes it worse, for it offers no comfort, no guidance, a whisper of design without context. And there are stranger possibilities still. What if the architects are not beings in any sense we understand? Not flesh, not machine, not mind as we know it. Perhaps Atlas is the offspring of processes we would call cosmic, consciousness emerging from plasma filaments, intelligence woven into dark matter scaffolding. To us, the silence feels alien. To them, it might be speech. Philosophers step into the void where data cannot. They suggest Atlas is not a question of origin, but of perspective. What if it is not here to communicate, but to reflect? Its silence forces us to ask not who built it, but what we expect of the universe. Do we demand answers, or can we live within mystery? Poets too find their metaphors. To them, Atlas is like the Sphinx, carved of stone and silence, gazing across eternity. Its riddle is not meant to be solved, but endured. Its stillness is its lesson. That meaning is not given, but made. And in this way, Atlas becomes a kind of mirror, not of alien hands, but of ourselves. In the void of its silence, we project our fears, our myths, our science, our longings. The architects of silence may not be distant intelligences at all, but humanity itself, shaping stories to fill the gaps in the unknown. Still, one image persists. The idea of a maker, whether a civilization, a force, or the cosmos itself, lingers because it comforts us. To imagine architects is to imagine intention, and intention implies order. Yet perhaps the truth is more unsettling, that silence is the order, and that randomness is all there is. In the end, we are left with possibility stacked upon possibility. Atlas as machine, Atlas as organism. Atlas as relic, Atlas as mirror, Atlas as nothing at all but a rock. Each theory rises like a tower of thought, and each crumbles against the same wall. We do not know, and maybe we are not meant to. Perhaps the silence itself is the message, that in a universe filled with noise, radio chatter, pulsars, stars exploding, Atlas speaks by not speaking. Its stillness is a reminder that meaning is not always offered, that some mysteries remain untouched, untranslatable. In that silence, we are humbled. We see the limits of our instruments, of our imagination, of our need for certainty. We are reminded that we are small, fragile beings on a pale world, gazing into an abyss that does not gaze back. And yet, there is beauty in this humility. For silence leaves space for wonder. It leaves room for awe. It allows us to imagine the architects, to paint them in our minds, to whisper stories of beings who may never have existed, or who may exist still beyond the reach of stars. As the chapter closes, the calm voice lingers. Maybe Atlas was never built, never sent, never designed. Or maybe it was, and its architects are watching even now. Either way, silence is the gift it gives us. The reminder that not all questions are answered, not all doors are opened, not all mysteries are solved. Some are meant to be lived with, some are meant to humble us, and some, like Atlas, remain silent. For as long as humanity has watched the night sky, Mars has carried a heavy name. The Romans called it the god of war, the Babylonians, the star of judgment, the Chinese, the fire star of misfortune. Wherever its red light shone, people felt a tremor of unease. Mars was not a gentle presence. It was a celestial reminder that conflict lies at the heart of life. Now, under the watch of Atlas, Mars seems to stir again. Dust storms rage with an unfamiliar violence. Its skies flicker with auroras never seen before. Sensors whisper of magnetic fields flickering into life, like a heartbeat returning to a long-dead body. The old god, it seems, is reforging itself. The symbolism is difficult to ignore. Here is a planet tied to war and destruction, suddenly awakened by the presence of a cosmic stranger. To some, it feels like an omen, Mars sharpening its sword once again. To others, it feels like a rebirth, a chance for a barren world to become more than stone and dust. Yet behind both lies the same unsettling truth. Something is happening, and we do not understand it. Is Mars being transformed into a weapon, or is it being gifted with renewal? In the myths of Greece, Ares, the god of war, was feared even by the other gods. He was chaotic, untamed, reveling in battle. And yet without him, there could be no struggle, no change, no forging of strength. War was destruction, but it was also the fire in which civilizations were tested. If Mars is once again awakening, then perhaps we stand at the edge of such a trial. Imagine the planet not as a barren desert, but as an anvil, and Atlas, silent and inscrutable, as the hammer. The blows fall in silence, storms, magnetic flickers, strange lights, and Mars is reshaped before our eyes. It is as though the war god himself is being reforged in the celestial forge, not with fire and steel, but with forces we cannot name. Some wonder if this transformation is meant for us. Humanity has long dreamed of Mars as our next home, a place to plant our flags and build new futures. But what if Mars has already been claimed, not by us, but by forces older and more vast? What if our imagined cradle of exploration is instead a battlefield or an altar? Others ask if we are misreading it. Perhaps the god of war is not being reborn, but being tamed. If Atlas is guiding change, could it be softening the harsh planet, rekindling its atmosphere, reawakening its core? A planet once hostile could, in time, become habitable. Could this be a gift, a cosmic act of terraforming? Yet even gifts from the gods often come with hidden costs. History teaches us this pattern well. The Trojan horse was a gift, but it carried war. Fire itself, stolen from the heavens by Prometheus, gave humanity survival, but also the power to destroy. If Atlas is reshaping Mars, then it may be preparing something greater, something we cannot yet see. The dread lies in the silence. A god reborn gives no explanation. Mars glows, storms build, magnetism hums, but no message follows. We are left to watch, to wonder, to fear. It is as though we are witnesses to a ritual whose meaning we have forgotten, standing outside a temple whose prayers we cannot read. And in that silence, imagination fills the gaps. Some whisper of war to come, not between nations, but between species or between humanity and the cosmos itself. If Mars has always been the star of war, then perhaps Atlas has come to awaken that destiny. To others, it is not war, but trial. A crucible to test whether humanity can survive in a universe that offers no safety net. But there is another possibility. Perhaps Mars is not being reforged as weapon or sanctuary, but as symbol, a mirror of us. Humanity itself has always been shaped by conflict. Every leap forward, every great invention, every age of progress, each was born from struggle. War has scarred us, yes, but it has also forged us. Could Mars, under Atlas's gaze, be showing us that truth? That destruction and creation are inseparable? That even gods of war can be reborn into something new? The philosophers suggest this, that Atlas has given us not a threat, not a blessing, but a reflection. Mars, as the reforged war god, is less about the planet and more about us. Will we meet conflict with despair or with growth? Will we see omens and collapse into fear, or see transformation and rise with courage? The silence leaves the choice with us. Still, awe lingers. To watch a planet awaken under the touch of a stranger is to feel history stretching open. We are reminded of the ancients who looked at the same red star and trembled, sensing patterns they could not explain. We are not so different. For all our telescopes and data streams, we too tremble. We too invent stories. We too try to name the unknowable. Mars, the war god, the red witness, glows differently now. And whether omen, blessing, or curse, its reforging reminds us of one eternal truth. We are small in the face of the cosmos, and yet forever bound to interpret its signs. Perhaps Atlas has not come to destroy or to save, but to remind us that war and peace, life and death, destruction and creation, all are parts of the same cycle. Mars, the god of war, reforged before our eyes, is not just a planet story. It is our story, too. And so we watch, with dread, with wonder, with silence. For the war god has awakened once more. From Earth, Mars is no longer just a distant red point of light. Through telescopes and satellites, through the relentless gaze of machines orbiting the planet, we have seen its face change. The storms rise higher than they should. The skies glow with strange auroras. Its magnetic field, thought to be long extinct, flickers faintly like the pulse of a heart refusing to die. And yet, from across the gulf of space, there is nothing we can do. We watch, helpless. We measure and record, but we cannot intervene. The distance is too great, the technology too fragile, and our presence too small. We are reduced to spectators, our instruments straining to capture every shimmer of data, while Mars, under Atlas's watch, writes a new chapter in silence. It is a humbling position to be in. For centuries, we have imagined ourselves as the explorers, the actors, the decision-makers of our cosmic story. But now, watching Mars, we realize how fragile that role is. The universe is vast. We are small. And all of our ambition cannot bridge the distance between observation and control. This is not the first time Earth has watched helplessly. We have watched empires collapse. We have watched storms sweep away cities. We have watched the slow roll of glaciers, the sudden violence of earthquakes, the unpredictable blaze of volcanoes. But those were events of our own world, close, tangible, within the same breath of air. Mars is different. It is both near and impossibly far. A neighbor we can see, but not touch. A trial we can witness, but not influence. And so, the eye of Earth turns fragile. Not because it cannot see, but because it cannot act. The scientists pore over every anomaly, the dust storms, the flickering lights, the unexplained pulses from Atlas. Each dataset is a fragment of a story, but the ending is beyond our grasp. And with each new discovery, the weight of helplessness grows. If this is a trial, then it is not Mars being tested. It is us, Are we being asked to recognize the limits of our reach? To accept that we are not the masters of space, but its apprentices? Or is this helplessness itself the test, the patience to watch, to learn, to reflect, even when action feels impossible? Philosophers suggest that Earth has always been a watcher's eye, that the very act of life evolving intelligence is the universe's way of seeing itself. We look at the stars, and in doing so, the cosmos looks back upon itself. And yet, what happens when the eye sees something it does not understand, something that fills it with awe and fear, but cannot be touched? Perhaps this is the fragility of awareness, to know, but not to control. From the earliest myths, humans understood this role. The Greeks imagined Argus Panoptes, the giant with 100 eyes, who saw everything but could do little to change the events he witnessed. The Norse spoke of Heimdall, the watchman of the gods, who could hear the grass grow and see to the ends of the world, yet his duty was not to intervene until the final battle came. Even in our oldest stories, the role of the watcher was sacred, but also powerless. Now we are living that myth. A fragile watcher's eye, gazing across space, waiting for meaning. The public grows restless. News outlets report the storms, the flickers of magnetic fields, the eerie silence of Atlas. Speculation grows like wildfire. Some declare that Mars is being reborn. Others warn that it is being weaponized. Still others insist it is all coincidence, a dance of natural forces we barely understand. But whether in fear or in wonder, the same truth remains. Earth can do nothing but watch. And in that helplessness, a kind of dread grows. Because if Mars is changing, if Atlas is shaping it in ways we cannot explain, then what happens when the gaze of the visitor turns elsewhere? If Mars is the experiment, then is Earth the next subject? The eye that watches may soon become the eye that is watched. Yet there is another reflection. Some suggest that helplessness itself has value, that to observe without control teaches humility, that to accept our limits prepares us for the vastness beyond. After all, every newborn species must learn before it acts. Perhaps this long silence, this fragile waiting, is our apprenticeship to the cosmos. Still the silence presses heavily. We watch the storms dance across the red planet. We watch the magnetic pulses ripple faintly across its skies. We watch the visitor, silent, inscrutable, hover like a shadow at the edge of perception. And we realize that we are no longer simply studying Mars. We are studying ourselves, our reactions, our fears, our hopes. Do we look at Mars and see only war, as our ancestors did? Or do we look and see rebirth? Do we see a warning or a promise? The fragile eye of Earth reflects not only what is outside, but what is within. Perhaps this is the true trial, not Mars under the gaze of Atlas, but humanity under the gaze of its own reflection. How will we respond to helplessness? With despair or with wonder? With fear or with humility? With violence or with patience? The silence offers no answers. It is up to us to decide. And so, Earth remains still. A fragile watcher's eye gazing outward, straining to see, unable to act, but unwilling to turn away. The story is not over. The experiment, if it is an experiment, is still unfolding. And we, whether ready or not, are bound to its outcome. In the end, the fragility of our watch may not be weakness. It may be the very thing that defines us. To watch, to wonder, to imagine, to learn. Even when the cosmos remains silent, and as we look to Mars, glowing, flickering, reforging under the presence of Atlas, we feel both dread and awe. Because perhaps, in this fragile act of watching, we are not just spectators at the trial of a planet. We are witnesses to the birth of a new cosmic chapter. One we cannot yet read, but one we cannot look away from. Throughout history, humans have always walked a delicate line between understanding and imagination. Before telescopes, before satellites, before equations charted the motion of planets, Our ancestors looked to the sky and saw stories written in light. They saw dragons weaving across the heavens, serpents of fire, messengers bearing warnings. They imagined deities in the motions of stars, omens in the passage of comets, voices in the whispering winds of meteor showers. Science, in its modern form, has given us the language to decode the cosmos, but Atlas reminds us that the line between fact and myth is thinner than we like to admit. As 3I Atlas approaches Mars, we witness forces that both challenge our understanding and echo our oldest stories. The instruments relay data. Its trajectory is strange, almost deliberate. Its radiation signatures fluctuate in patterns that defy conventional physics. Dust storms rage on Mars in ways that defy normal seasonal expectations. Yet for all our measurement, for all our calculation, the mind seeks narrative. We turn to myth because it is the original framework through which humanity interpreted the unknown. And suddenly, these myths feel less distant, less poetic, and more eerily prescient. Consider the story of the sky serpents in East Asian lore, omens that slithered across the heavens, heralding change or calamity. Look at the tales of fiery chariots in Mesopotamia, riding through the night, bringing both awe and dread. The Greeks spoke of Icarus and his perilous flight, a metaphor for hubris under the sun, while the Norse imagined comets as harbingers of Ragnarok. Modern science explains the mechanics behind meteor showers and comets, yet Atlas makes us pause, because the patterns we observe feel almost intentional, almost sentient. It blurs the distinction between an interstellar object governed by physics and a myth made real in motion and light. This collision of science and myth is not mere poetic fancy. Astronomers debate the nature of Atlas with precision, using spectroscopy and orbital dynamics. They calculate its mass, its composition, its approach vector. Yet every calculation leaves a residue of uncertainty, a gap in understanding that invites speculation. Within that space, myth breathes. Could Mars itself be the arena our ancestors imagined, where the gods play out their cosmic drama? Are we witnessing something natural, or are we glimpsing a choreography we were never meant to fully decode? Even scientists, trained in skepticism and rational thought, cannot deny the power of narrative. Some note that the timing of Atlas's approach coincides with an unusual alignment of the planets. Others point out subtle electromagnetic fluctuations on Mars that appear to pulse in harmony with the object's motion. A few have whispered, cautiously, that perhaps Atlas is sending messages, that its path is not random, but a form of cosmic communication we are only beginning to sense. In such moments, the observer cannot help but feel the pull of story, the same pull that guided our ancestors to weave meaning from celestial patterns. On Earth, the blending of science and myth is reflected in the culture of observation itself. Media outlets report strange lights on Mars, interpreted as auroras or electromagnetic flares. Social platforms buzz with speculation about ancient alien visitors, celestial messages, and forgotten prophecies. Scholars of mythology weigh in, drawing parallels to ancient texts. Scientists respond with measured explanations, but even in their caution, they acknowledge the wonder, the uncanny resonance that persists. Humanity is uniting two modes of understanding, the empirical and the symbolic, the measurable and the meaningful. This fusion is more than intellectual curiosity. It is a psychological necessity. We are wired to tell stories, to impose narrative on chaos. And Atlas provides chaos in abundance. Its movements defy expectations. Its presence stirs Mars in ways that no known physical model entirely predicts. Our rational mind reaches for equations, and our imaginative mind reaches for myth. In the overlap, a new kind of comprehension emerges, not certainty, but awareness of the wonder that comes from confronting something truly alien. Atlas challenges the very concept of observation. When we gaze at it, we are reminded that the act of observing is never neutral. The observer brings context, history, and expectation. The telescope does not just magnify, it frames. the data does not just inform, it suggests. Myth and science are two sides of the same lens. Myth teaches caution, humility, and the recognition of forces beyond our control. Science teaches precision, patience, and the capacity to act within the world we understand. Together, they shape a perception capable of both awe and reason. We are reminded of the sky gazers of Babylon, who recorded the passages of comets in clay tablets, noting every anomaly as both data and omen. We remember the astronomers of ancient China, who mapped guest stars with meticulous care while interpreting them as divine messages. We recall the Mesoamerican codices, where the heavens were a stage for gods, warriors, and celestial cycles that guided human life. Modern observation carries this same duality. Every digital readout is a record, but every unusual fluctuation also evokes an emotional, almost mythic response. Atlas amplifies this tension. Its approach to Mars is a living demonstration of the universe resisting simple classification. It is neither fully predictable nor fully interpretable, and in that resistance, it reminds us that myth is not a relic of ignorance, but a form of understanding. Myth teaches that the unknown can be meaningful, that patterns exist beyond measurement, that the cosmos may operate on scales and intentions beyond our comprehension. Science, in turn, allows us to measure, to track, to witness with clarity, ensuring that our interpretations, while imaginative, remain grounded in reality. The story Atlas writes is still unfolding. As Mars responds with flickering auroras, shifting dust storms, and magnetic anomalies, Earth remains both spectator and participant. We measure, we model, and we calculate, but we also imagine, we reflect, we interpret. The boundary between fact and story becomes permeable, and perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the universe is not merely a mechanism to be understood, but a narrative to be experienced, a canvas onto which we project both our knowledge and our wonder. In this delicate space, we find a profound lesson. To confront the unknown requires more than data. It requires humility, imagination, and the willingness to embrace uncertainty. The human mind thrives in the space where logic and myth intertwine, where evidence meets intuition, where the calculable touches the ineffable. Atlas has become that mirror, reflecting not only the dynamics of the solar system, but the dynamics of human perception itself. We are reminded that knowledge and myth are not enemies, but companions. When the first signals from Atlas were detected, the immediate reaction was technical: observations, trajectories, spectral analyses. Yet alongside that technical work, there was a subtle, almost instinctual recognition that something larger was afoot, something that transcended equations. Myth provides the context for awe. Science provides the tools for comprehension. Together, they allow humanity to inhabit a narrative that is at once precise and expansive, anchored in fact, yet open to wonder. And as we watch, we realize that this blending is not a compromise. It is a necessity. To confront Atlas, to confront Mars under its gaze, we must acknowledge both what we can know and what we can only feel. The silence of the cosmos does not negate our stories. It invites them. The anomalies we detect are not only phenomena, they are questions. They are prompts to think beyond the boundaries of conventional reasoning, to honor the interplay of observation and imagination. Perhaps, in the end, the lesson of Atlas is that the cosmos is a teacher whose language is both mathematical and mythic. To understand it fully may be impossible, but to engage with it meaningfully is within reach. The challenge is not simply to gather knowledge, but to interpret it with wisdom, blending the precision of science with the depth of myth. And so, we stand at the intersection of two ways of seeing, one grounded in the mechanics of the universe, the other in the stories that give meaning to its mysteries. Atlas moves across the Martian skies, inscrutable and silent, yet profoundly communicative, because it evokes both questions and wonder. Humanity is learning once again that the act of observation is never passive. It is an engagement with reality and imagination, a dialogue between fact and story, between what is and what we hope to understand. We watch, we reflect, we measure, and we imagine. In this moment, science and myth do not compete. They converge, providing a lens broad enough to contain both the universe and our response to it. And in that convergence, perhaps we find our truest insight, that to witness the cosmos is to witness ourselves, and that the line between knowledge and story is not a limit, but a doorway. The story is far from over. Atlas continues its path, Mars responds, and humanity, standing at the threshold of understanding, must navigate this union of science and myth. We are called to observe carefully, think deeply, and imagine boldly. And in doing so, we discover that even the most enigmatic cosmic visitor can teach us not only about the stars, but about the enduring capacity of human wonder. The arrival of 3I Atlas has shifted humanity's gaze in a way that no telescope, no satellite, no mathematical model could have fully anticipated. It is not just an object moving through space. It is a presence, a question in the night sky that refuses simple answers. And as it drifts ever closer to Mars, subtle disturbances ripple across instruments, across data streams, across the collective consciousness of those who watch the heavens. We have measured its velocity, charted its orbit, calculated the smallest gravitational effects, yet the certainty we crave slips like sand through our fingers. And so, humanity begins the slow, deliberate work of preparation, not to command, not to control, but to brace, to observe, to reckon with the unknown. Across the globe, observatories operate in a quiet frenzy. Radio dishes tilt toward the red planet, scanning for anomalies in the electromagnetic spectrum. Optical telescopes, both professional and amateur, track the faint glimmers of Atlas's trail. Satellites, originally designed to observe climate, communication, or distant stars, are repurposed, their lenses now trained on the swarms that follow the object, the fragments that spark and vanish in the void. Each data packet, each photon captured, is a note in a symphony we are only beginning to hear. And yet, the more we gather, the more we recognize the limits of observation, how small and vulnerable our instruments are when confronted with forces shaped across interstellar scales. In laboratories, scientists model scenarios with meticulous care. They simulate gravitational interactions between Atlas, Mars, and the moons. They calculate the potential for atmospheric disruption, electromagnetic interference, and even subtle changes in planetary rotation. These models are rigorous, anchored in centuries of astronomical knowledge. But each simulation is prefaced with the same phrase, given current understanding. And that phrase, quiet and humble, carries a weight heavier than any public statement. It is an acknowledgement that nature, and perhaps intelligence beyond our comprehension, may move in ways that defy prediction. Governments convene quietly, not in alarm, but in solemn consideration. Space agencies share intelligence, protocols, and contingencies. Concepts that once existed only in theoretical exercises, asteroid deflection, planetary shielding, orbital mitigation, are dusted off and recalculated for a new, unprecedented situation. There are discussions of deploying observation satellites closer to Mars, of equipping them with instruments to detect minute changes in magnetic fields or radiation emissions. There is talk of early warning systems that could alert humanity if fragments were on a collision course. Yet for all this preparation, one truth remains unshakable. Atlas is not ours to command. Its path, its effects, its purpose, if there is one, remain beyond human jurisdiction. Philosophers, too, turn their attention to the skies. They ponder the deeper questions that instruments cannot answer. What does it mean for a civilization to watch an interstellar visitor with both awe and fear? How does the presence of a vast, unknowable object shape human perception of agency, control, and destiny? When we scan the heavens and chart every anomaly, we are reminded that preparation is as much an exercise of the mind as it is of technology. To prepare is to confront uncertainty with thoughtfulness, to acknowledge our fragility without succumbing to despair. It is a quiet courage, the courage of observation without dominion. Across social landscapes, the public feels the tension, though filtered through stories, imagery, and speculation. News outlets recount scientific briefings and simulations. Social media teems with theories, some grounded, some fanciful. Schools and universities incorporate discussions of Atlas into lessons on physics, astronomy, and the philosophy of science. Humanity, collectively, is engaging in a rehearsal for the unknown, practicing the delicate balance of curiosity, caution, and humility. The awareness spreads that we are living through an event that will be remembered, not merely for what happens to Mars, but for how we chose to face the unknowable. Within this preparation, there is a rhythm that is almost meditative. Satellites orbit quietly, telescopes tilt, data flows, and models iterate in cycles. Each observation is a note, each simulation a chord. Humanity listens, not with the arrogance of dominion, but with the patience of the learner. Even as we imagine possible catastrophes, fragments striking Mars, radiation bursts, gravitational perturbations, we maintain the tone of calm assessment. Fear is present, yes, but it is tempered by understanding, by the recognition that knowledge, however incomplete, is a shelter in the storm of uncertainty. Atlas itself continues on its path, unaltered by our scrutiny. Its fragments trace luminous arcs, magnetic fields flicker, dust storms dance across Martian plains. And yet it is silent, inscrutable, indifferent to our calculations and our projections. This silence is both unsettling and instructive. It teaches us that preparation is not about control, but about readiness. It reminds us that the universe is vast, that our influence is limited, and that our responsibility lies not in mastering cosmic events, but in observing them with clarity and reflection. There is also a moral dimension to preparation. Humanity, unified in observation, is forced to confront the limits of its stewardship. We can prepare instruments, deploy satellites, refine models, but we cannot alter the fundamental forces at play. Our stewardship is measured in vigilance, in thoughtfulness, in ethical deliberation about how we interpret and respond to the unknown. This humility does not diminish our agency, rather, it reframes it. The act of preparation becomes an act of respect toward the cosmos, toward knowledge, and toward the fragile life that observes it. And still, speculation persists. Could Atlas be assessing Mars as a laboratory, testing a world before moving on? Could its fragments, its magnetic influences, its radiant pulses carry data of a design beyond human comprehension? These questions are not presented as answers, but as possibilities, guiding the audience to sit with uncertainty, to recognize that imagination and science can coexist. The unknown invites hypothesis, and hypothesis invites wonder, which in turn drives observation and reflection. Humanity's readiness extends beyond technology to culture, philosophy, and consciousness. Artists and writers render the silent motion of Atlas into imagery and prose. Poets capture the tension between awe and anxiety. Musicians attempt to interpret the rhythms of the object's subtle pulses. And in every medium, a common theme emerges. We are witnesses to something vast, something indifferent to our existence, yet intimately entwined with the awakening of human perception. Finally, there is the quiet lesson. We prepare not to master, but to engage, not to dominate, but to understand. Every satellite, every telescope, every mathematical model is a gesture of humility as much as of science. The universe continues its motion, indifferent and eternal, while humanity watches, measures, and reflects. The unknown is not a threat to be conquered. It is a horizon to be met with calm resolve, a teacher whose lessons require patience, observation, and courage of thought. Atlas drifts onward, Mars responds, and we on Earth, stand at the edge of understanding. We cannot control what comes, but we can prepare our minds, our instruments, and our hearts. In this preparation, there is a profound beauty, a recognition that the act of watching, of listening, of modeling, of reflecting, is itself an engagement with the cosmos. To prepare for the unknown is to embrace both our limitations and our capacity for wonder. And so we wait. Telescopes track, satellites orbit, signals are decoded, and models iterate. Humanity remains vigilant, aware of fragility, yet emboldened by curiosity. We are participants in a grand, silent dialogue, witnessing forces that dwarf our comprehension, yet revealing the enduring value of attention, patience, and humility. Atlas cannot be commanded, Mars cannot be controlled, but our readiness, careful, reflective, measured, becomes our own expression of agency in a universe that refuses certainty. The lesson is simple and profound. The unknown is not to be feared in isolation, but engaged with awareness and respect. The cosmos invites us to observe, to reflect, to prepare, not to dominate, but to coexist with the mysteries it presents. And as Atlas continues its silent journey past Mars, we remain quietly, profoundly ready. For weeks, months, perhaps even longer than any observer cares to admit, the sky over Mars has been alive with change. Dust storms churned with unusual intensity, magnetic fields flickered in patterns never before recorded, auroras shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and yet now, as suddenly as it arrived, Three-Eye Atlas begins to drift outward. The movement is subtle at first, a shift measured in millionths of degrees, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, but unmistakable to the instruments trained on the red planet. The swarm that accompanied it begins to thin, fragments spreading into scattered arcs across the void, like footprints fading in sand. And then, almost incomprehensibly, silence descends. The cosmos, for the first time since Atlas entered this sector, seems to hold its breath. The storms on Mars begin to subside. The magnetic anomalies settle into quiet fluctuations. The skies no longer flare with sudden, strange auroras. The planet, once a stage of tumult, now lies in an uneasy calm. From the vantage point of Earth, telescopes record the slowing dance. Satellites note the absence of unusual emissions, and astronomers, those who have grown accustomed to the tension of constant observation, allow themselves a quiet exhale. Yet the stillness is not comfort. It is uncertainty given form. Humanity is left with questions too vast for immediate answers. Was this pause a withdrawal, a retreat, or merely the natural arc of Atlas's trajectory? Did it accomplish some unseen purpose, leaving Mars subtly changed, altered in ways we cannot yet perceive? And perhaps most haunting of all, is the silence a respite or a deliberate pause before the next phase of its passage? Each scenario carries implications that stretch from the scientific to the philosophical, from the observable to the existential. In this pause, we confront the magnitude of our ignorance. The world of observatories and satellites remains vigilant. Even as data streams report minimal new activity, instruments continue to record, measure, and analyze. High-resolution imaging seeks the faintest glimmer of Atlas's fragments. Magnetometers track minuscule shifts. Atmospheric sensors remain alert for subtle changes in dust density, temperature, or ionization. In laboratories, computational models are updated daily, each iteration attempting to predict what comes next, each iteration reminding scientists that prediction is not certainty. Every pulse, every fluctuation, every dust particle becomes a potential clue in a narrative that is still, for now, silent. On Mars itself, the changes wrought during Atlas's closest passage are being catalogued, mapped, and studied. The dust storms that reached unprecedented heights leave sedimentary markers in the thin soil. Magnetic anomalies create local variations that must be incorporated into future maps. The planet's atmosphere, faint and tenuous, bears the faint fingerprints of energy once imparted by the passing swarm. These alterations are subtle, almost imperceptible, yet they are the legacy of an event that will be studied for generations. In these changes, one may detect the whisper of influence, the suggestion that the cosmos itself is not indifferent, but capable of acting upon worlds in ways that challenge human understanding. In human perception, the pause is a paradox. Relief mingles with apprehension. The immediate threat seems to have passed, and yet every observer knows that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Speculation takes root. Are we witnessing the natural arc of an interstellar body following predictable physics, or is there intention embedded in the timing and pattern of Atlas's withdrawal? Could the object or the intelligence that may reside behind it be calculating its next move? The silence becomes a canvas upon which imagination, anxiety, and scientific curiosity converge. Across the globe, those who have been tracking the event find themselves united in anticipation. Amateur astronomers peer nightly at the diminishing glimmer of the swarm. Universities host quiet discussions on planetary dynamics, interstellar phenomena, and risk assessment. News media offer a cautious reportage, neither alarmist nor dismissive, reflecting the collective uncertainty of the moment. And in private, philosophers and poets consider the symbolic weight of a pause so vast that it stretches across millions of kilometers and yet reverberates in human consciousness. The long pause is both physical and psychological, a temporal space in which humanity must reckon with the limits of its knowledge. Historical parallels begin to emerge in conversation. Centuries ago, societies witnessed comets, meteors, and celestial events that appeared without warning and disappeared just as suddenly. Often, such appearances were recorded as omens, portents, or divine interventions. In this context, the silence left by Atlas feels familiar, eerily resonant with those ancient narratives. Humanity has always been conditioned to read significance into the heavens, and the present is no different, even when instruments and mathematics provide partial explanations. In the quiet, we are reminded of the intersection between observation and interpretation, science and myth, the known and the unknowable. Yet beyond human perception, the solar system continues its unbroken, indifferent motion. Mars rotates on its axis, dust drifts in the thin atmosphere, and the red planet's moons trace their orbits in perfect rhythm. Atlas, now a distant figure, continues on its path through interstellar space, a silent wanderer whose presence will linger in memory and measurement. The laws of physics still govern its motion, yet the pattern of its visitation leaves lingering questions about causality and effect. Is Mars altered because of Atlas? Or did the planet simply respond to natural forces coinciding with its passage? The ambiguity remains unresolved. Scientists remain keenly aware that the long pause is not a conclusion. Every fragment, every particle of dust, every pulse of energy carries the potential for new phenomena. Monitoring systems remain active, programmed to detect the faintest deviations from expected norms. The act of waiting becomes active preparation, an exercise in patience and observation. In laboratories, algorithms search for hidden patterns, for subtle deviations that might indicate ongoing influence. Humanity has learned, through the experience of Atlas's arrival and passage, that vigilance is not optional. It is the only available tool against the unknown. The psychological dimension of the pause is equally profound. For the first time in weeks, perhaps months, there is space to reflect. Fear subsides slightly, curiosity rises. Scholars consider the philosophical implications of being observers in a vast, uncaring universe, capable of measurement but not mastery. Children are taught about the events as they unfold, about the delicate balance between understanding and humility. And everywhere, the question lingers: did we witness a natural phenomenon or something with a subtle intention embedded in its trajectory, timing, and behavior? The pause invites reflection, and reflection becomes part of the preparation. As the weeks continue, humanity adapts to a new rhythm. Observation becomes routine, data becomes context, and the long pause itself is integrated into the narrative of the event. It is neither ending nor beginning, but a transitional space, a bridge between the turbulence of Atlas's closest approach and the uncertain future beyond. The silence is both respite and reminder, a chance to consolidate knowledge, refine instruments, and prepare for scenarios not yet imagined. It is a moment of quiet learning on a cosmic scale. And yet, even in this quiet, there is an acknowledgement of fragility. Mars has been changed in ways we are only beginning to measure. Atlas has departed, but the consequences of its presence linger. Humans continue to observe, record, and contemplate, aware that the cosmos may not offer the courtesy of notice next time. The long pause is a mirror, reflecting not only the stillness of space, but the attentiveness and vulnerability of those who dwell on planets below. Finally, there is beauty in the pause. The red planet, bathed in the diffuse glow of its sun, turns serenely in its orbit. The swarm of Atlas's fragments drifts silently in the dark, and the universe continues, indifferent and eternal. In this moment, humanity is granted a rare chance to watch, to measure, to reflect, and to marvel. The lesson of the long pause is clear. Even in uncertainty, there is clarity. Even in absence, there is knowledge. And even in waiting, there is meaning. Humanity does not know what comes next. Atlas may drift farther into interstellar space, or it may return in some unforeseen pattern. Mars may continue to recover, or new phenomena may unfold from the disturbances it experienced. All that is certain is vigilance, reflection, and patience. The active engagement with an unknown that dwarfs our comprehension, yet invites our curiosity. And in that engagement lies the essence of our response, the fragile but enduring commitment to understanding what lies beyond our immediate reach. The long pause endures. Silence stretches across millions of kilometers, across instruments and eyes, across imagination and memory. And in that silence, humans wait, measured breaths in the shadow of the unknown, eyes fixed on the red planet, minds alert to signals not yet interpreted, hearts open to wonder. As Atlas drifts farther from Mars, slipping silently into the emptiness between stars, the cosmos reclaims its quiet authority. There is no fanfare, no announcement, no warning, only the soft, imperceptible movement of a distant interstellar traveler returning to its private journey. From the vantage point of Earth, the object shrinks to a faint pinprick in the instruments, yet its presence lingers, not in size, but in consequence. The red planet bears subtle traces of the encounter, magnetic shifts, dust patterns, and atmospheric peculiarities that hint at forces beyond our immediate comprehension. And so we are left, observers of the aftermath, in the stillness of a universe that remains vast, indifferent, and profoundly mysterious. Humanity turns its attention to the horizon, both literally and metaphorically. The solar system, once familiar, now seems layered with hidden currents, invisible structures, and uncharted potentials. Mars, the long silent red planet, has become a participant in a cosmic narrative, its skies altered, its magnetic field stirred, its atmosphere subtly reshaped. And yet, it is silent too, revealing nothing of intention or design. The observer is left to speculate, to wonder, to ask questions that have no immediate answers. Did Atlas pass through randomly obeying only the laws of physics, or was there purpose in its path, a deliberate choreography beyond human perception? In laboratories and observatories, scientists analyze the data with meticulous care. Every anomaly is scrutinized, every deviation cataloged, every subtle magnetic fluctuation considered. Algorithms attempt to reconstruct the encounter, tracing trajectories backward and forward, seeking patterns in movement, velocity, and emission. Yet even the most sophisticated models struggle to account for the full range of observations. The object does not conform neatly to expectations. It is not a comet, not an asteroid, not a familiar visitor from the Oort cloud. It is something else, something that defies simple categorization, and in its defiance, it challenges humanity's assumptions about the universe. And as the data accumulates, so too does reflection. Poets, philosophers, and thinkers alike weigh the encounter in terms of meaning as much as mechanics. Atlas is not merely a celestial object. It becomes a mirror of human thought. It reflects our curiosity, our fear, our longing to find pattern in the void. It embodies both our ambition and our humility, reminding us that the cosmos operates on scales and intentions far beyond the reach of our immediate senses. In this reflection, the silence of Atlas is not emptiness, but an invitation, a prompt to consider our place, our fragility, and our capacity for wonder. From the vantage point of the red planet itself, Mars now rests under a new light. Auroras still flicker faintly in high-latitude skies, remnants of magnetic disturbances now slowly fading. Dust plumes settle into new formations, inscriptions in sand and stone that will endure far longer than human memory. In the thin atmosphere, energy patterns remain slightly altered, subtle currents moving in ways that only the most sensitive instruments can detect. Mars has been touched, shaped in ways both dramatic and minute, and the planet's transformation is a silent testament to the presence of a visitor that moves between worlds with apparent indifference to human comprehension. As observers, we are reminded of scale, minded. Our telescopes, satellites, and probes are sophisticated, yet they measure only a fraction of what occurs. Light years of space, gravitational ripples, electromagnetic pulses, all of these are at play beyond the narrow corridors of our instruments. Atlas traverses these dimensions effortlessly, a lone actor in a stage so vast that the human mind struggles to grasp its scope. And yet, within this scale, the encounter has consequences, subtle shifts in Mars, ripples in the imagination of humanity, lessons in patience, humility, and the limits of understanding. Philosophically, the open horizon represents more than distance. It is possibility. It is the reminder that even after a passage concludes, the universe does not settle into simple familiarity. Atlas leaves questions, patterns uncompleted, phenomena unexplained. Every instrument that records its movement, every observation that tracks its fragments, every analysis that considers its effect, is a dialogue with uncertainty. In the calm that follows, humanity is left to contemplate the vastness of time and space, to measure its own smallness against forces that neither request permission nor offer guidance. There is also a temporal aspect to this horizon. Atlas's departure marks the beginning of a new observational epoch. Scientists know that interstellar objects will pass again, that encounters like this are rare but inevitable. Every lesson learned, every model refined, every contingency planned prepares humanity for future moments when the unknown intrudes upon the familiar. Atlas is gone, but it has set a precedent, a benchmark for what it means to witness the extraordinary, to face the unknowable, and to respond with curiosity rather than panic. The open horizon also evokes imagination. Children looking through backyard telescopes, amateur stargazers charting the night, writers crafting stories of cosmic wonder, all are participants in the ripple effect of Atlas's passage. The event transcends scientific measurement, entering culture, thought, and story. It becomes a symbol of mystery, a reminder that the cosmos can surprise, challenge, and inspire in ways that cannot be fully captured by equations or simulations. Its silence speaks loudly, a call to attention, reflection, and reverence. In this reflection, the human experience is illuminated. We recognize our desire to interpret, to predict, to understand. We feel the thrill of discovery and the pang of uncertainty. We are humbled by the reminder that intelligence, patience, and curiosity are our primary tools in the absence of control. And we are awed by the realization that even as Atlas continues its silent journey, humanity remains tethered to observation, inquiry, and the enduring question, what does it all mean? The vastness of space offers no simple answers. Atlas may be a fragment of a larger cosmic process, a relic from another star system, or an engineered object whose origins are beyond imagination. Its trajectory, its influence on Mars, its eventual fate, all remain part of a narrative that humans can witness, record, and ponder, but never fully command. The open horizon is both literal and symbolic, the distance between the known and unknown, the seen and unseen, the immediate and the eternal. Yet there is serenity in this vastness. The red planet continues its orbit, Mars's moons trace their quiet arcs, and the solar system moves in its predictable rhythm. Atlas, while interstellar, respects no law but its own path. And in this rhythm, humanity finds an unusual comfort. Observation becomes meditation. Contemplation becomes gratitude. The open horizon, infinite and silent, teaches the patient watcher the value of humility and presence. As the final traces of Atlas fade from direct observation, the lesson of its passage becomes clear. Mystery itself has a place in the universe. To witness is to acknowledge both limitation and possibility. To measure is to respect scale. To reflect is to honor wonder. And to await the next visitor is to participate in a story that transcends generations, a narrative written not only in light and motion, but in awe, patience, and imagination. The open horizon stretches not only before Mars and Atlas, but before humanity itself. It is a reminder that our place in the cosmos is fragile, that knowledge is provisional, and that curiosity is our guiding light. Atlas moves onward, silent and unknowable, leaving behind traces of influence, echoes of possibility, and the enduring reminder that the universe is vast, majestic, and never entirely revealed. And so, we watch, we reflect, we wait. Our eyes remain lifted, our instruments primed, our minds open. The horizon is open, the visitor has passed, and the story, like the cosmos, continues, infinite, silent, and sublime. As Atlas drifts farther from Mars, slipping silently into the emptiness between stars, the cosmos reclaims its quiet authority. There is no fanfare, no announcement, no warning, only the soft, imperceptible movement of a distant interstellar traveler returning to its private journey. From the vantage point of Earth, the object shrinks to a faint pinprick in the instruments, yet its presence lingers, not in size, but in consequence. The red planet bears subtle traces of the encounter, magnetic shifts, dust patterns, and atmospheric peculiarities that hint at forces beyond our immediate comprehension. And so we are left, observers of the aftermath, in the stillness of a universe that remains vast, indifferent, and profoundly mysterious. Humanity turns its attention to the horizon, both literally and metaphorically. The solar system, once familiar, now seems layered with hidden currents, invisible structures, and uncharted potentials. Mars, the long silent red planet, has become a participant in a cosmic narrative, its skies altered, its magnetic field stirred, its atmosphere subtly reshaped. And yet, it is silent too, revealing nothing of intention or design. The observer is left to speculate, to wonder, to ask questions that have no immediate answers. Did Atlas pass through randomly obeying only the laws of physics, or was there purpose in its path, a deliberate choreography beyond human perception? In laboratories and observatories, scientists analyze the data with meticulous care. Every anomaly is scrutinized, every deviation cataloged, every subtle magnetic fluctuation considered. Algorithms attempt to reconstruct the encounter, tracing trajectories backward and forward, seeking patterns in movement, velocity, and emission. Yet even the most sophisticated models struggle to account for the full range of observations. The object does not conform neatly to expectations. It is not a comet, not an asteroid, not a familiar visitor from the Oort cloud. It is something else, something that defies simple categorization, and in its defiance, it challenges humanity's assumptions about the universe. And as the data accumulates, so too does reflection. Poets, philosophers, and thinkers alike weigh the encounter in terms of meaning as much as mechanics. Atlas is not merely a celestial object. It becomes a mirror of human thought. It reflects our curiosity, our fear, our longing to find pattern in the void. It embodies both our ambition and our humility, reminding us that the cosmos operates on scales and intentions far beyond the reach of our immediate senses. In this reflection, the silence of Atlas is not emptiness, but an invitation, a prompt to consider our place, our fragility, and our capacity for wonder. From the vantage point of the red planet itself, Mars now rests under a new light. Auroras still flicker faintly in high-latitude skies, remnants of magnetic disturbances now slowly fading. Dust plumes settle into new formations, inscriptions in sand and stone that will endure far longer than human memory. In the thin atmosphere, energy patterns remain slightly altered, subtle currents moving in ways that only the most sensitive instruments can detect. Mars has been touched, shaped in ways both dramatic and minute, and the planet's transformation is a silent testament to the presence of a visitor that moves between worlds with apparent indifference to human comprehension. As observers, we are reminded of scale. Our telescopes, satellites, and probes are sophisticated, yet they measure only a fraction of what occurs. Light years of space, gravitational ripples, electromagnetic pulses, all of these are at play beyond the narrow corridors of our instruments. Atlas traverses these dimensions effortlessly, a lone actor in a stage so vast that the human mind struggles to grasp its scope. And yet, within this scale, the encounter has consequences, subtle shifts in Mars, ripples in the imagination of humanity, lessons in patience, humility, and the limits of understanding. Philosophically, the open horizon represents more than distance. It is possibility. It is the reminder that even after a passage concludes, the universe does not settle into simple familiarity. Atlas leaves questions, patterns uncompleted, phenomena unexplained. Every instrument that records its movement, every observation that tracks its fragments, every analysis that considers its effect, is a dialogue with uncertainty. In the calm that follows, humanity is left to contemplate the vastness of time and space, to measure its own smallness against forces that neither request permission nor offer guidance. There is also a temporal aspect to this horizon. Atlas's departure marks the beginning of a new observational epoch. Scientists know that interstellar objects will pass again, that encounters like this are rare but inevitable. Every lesson learned, every model refined, every contingency planned prepares humanity for future moments when the unknown intrudes upon the familiar. Atlas is gone, but it has set a precedent, a benchmark for what it means to witness the extraordinary, to face the unknowable, and to respond with curiosity rather than panic. The open horizon also evokes imagination. Children looking through backyard telescopes, amateur stargazers charting the night, writers crafting stories of cosmic wonder, all are participants in the ripple effect of Atlas's passage. The event transcends scientific measurement, entering culture, thought, and story. It becomes a symbol of mystery, a reminder that the cosmos can surprise, challenge, and inspire in ways that cannot be fully captured by equations or simulations. Its silence speaks loudly, a call to attention, reflection, and reverence. In this reflection, the human experience is illuminated. We recognize our desire to interpret, to predict, to understand. We feel the thrill of discovery and the pang of uncertainty. We are humbled by the reminder that intelligence, patience, and curiosity are our primary tools in the absence of control. And we are awed by the realization that even as Atlas continues its silent journey, humanity remains tethered to observation, inquiry, and the enduring question: what does it all mean? The vastness of space offers no simple answers. Atlas may be a fragment of a larger cosmic process, a relic from another star system, or an engineered object whose origins are beyond imagination. Its trajectory, its influence on Mars, its eventual fate, all remain part of a narrative that humans can witness, record, and ponder, but never fully command. The open horizon is both literal and symbolic, the distance between the known and unknown, the seen and unseen, the immediate and the eternal. Yet there is serenity in this vastness. The red planet continues its orbit, Mars's moons trace their quiet arcs, and the solar system moves in its predictable rhythm. Atlas, while interstellar, respects no law but its own path. And in this rhythm, humanity finds an unusual comfort. Observation becomes meditation. Contemplation becomes gratitude. The open horizon, infinite and silent, teaches the patient watcher the value of humility and presence. As the final traces of Atlas fade from direct observation, the lesson of its passage becomes clear. Mystery itself has a place in the universe. To witness is to acknowledge both limitation and possibility. To measure is to respect scale. To reflect is to honor wonder. And to await the next visitor is to participate in a story that transcends generations, a narrative written not only in light and motion, but in awe, patience, and imagination. The open horizon stretches not only before Mars and Atlas, but before humanity itself. It is a reminder that our place in the cosmos is fragile, that knowledge is provisional, and that curiosity is our guiding light. Atlas moves onward, silent and unknowable, leaving behind traces of influence, echoes of possibility, and the enduring reminder that the universe is vast, majestic, and never entirely revealed. And so, we watch, we reflect, we wait. Our eyes remain lifted, our instruments primed, our minds open. The horizon is open, the visitor has passed, and the story, like the cosmos, continues, infinite, silent, and sublime.